La 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 la. Hello, everybody! С вами Сефириза, и сегодня я чуть-чуть постримлю рисовать. Я опять подрубила видос. Потому что мне нужна какая-то стимуляция.
Realistically, they mean very little in terms of difference, as they just dictate your major skills, specializations, and favorite attributes. These are all things that will matter less and less as you progress, although major skills are how you level up. And with that, it's time to discuss the most infamous mechanic in Oblivion, the leveling system. I highly recommend.
Я не знаю, начну ли, может быть, какую-нибудь еще атаку по-быстренькому, но что-то у меня быстренько не получается.
When playing through Oblivion, you will have an assortment of 7 major skills. These skills get a starting bonus and are used to determine when you level up. To level up in Oblivion, you must reach 10 points of progress within your major skills. This means either leveling up one major skill 10 times or leveling several by different amounts until you reach the total of 10. Sounds simple enough, right? It's not. Oblivion is incredibly difficult for some players, sometimes through no real fault of their own, although I guess it depends if you consider ignorance to be their fault. The world around you in Oblivion is dictated by your level, the items you'll find, the enemies you'll run into, and the gear bandits and marauders are carrying are based on tiers that are decided by your level. Basically, the world of Oblivion levels up with you, and this can be good or bad for a variety of reasons. Let's say there's a static set of armor you want to retrieve. You may not feel inclined to go and grab it until you reach a certain level, because if you retrieve it early, it won't be as powerful as it could have been, and it will stop progression once you receive it. This means you are punished for getting certain powerful items early on. It's not entirely noticeable to a first-time player, but to someone looking to squeeze more out of their experience, it can be hindered by this mechanic. On the other hand, you can start getting more powerful gear from the enemies around you. Bandits can carry Daedric or
Ты чё лагаешь?
be wearing Daedric armor, and you can collect these off of their corpses. If you haven't played Oblivion before, you may not realize how absurd that sounds though. A marauder having any Daedric equipment is a ludicrous thought. Once you understand the concept of the Oblivion Gates, the Daedra, and just how dangerous they are, to find yourself traveling through Cyrodiil constantly running into individuals wearing this incredibly rare and powerful armor makes less and less sense. Regardless of the nonsensical nature of it, the point I'm making is that it becomes easier for you to obtain more powerful gear at higher levels, so there are benefits to leveling up. However, I just mentioned that major skills are what level you up. Let's say that you create a custom class with no combat major skills. All of your major skills are instead things like armor, mercantile, speech, etc. You still have all of your combat skills, they're just minor, so they don't receive a bonus. But for the sake of the argument, let's say you never level them up. This is an extreme example, but imagine a character who reached level 20 off of these skills with no combat progress. You now exist in an incredibly hostile world for a character of your build. It would be virtually impossible to defend yourself from the creatures outside the safety of the various cities, at least until you spent some time addressing your combat flaws or lowering the game's difficulty. Like I said, that's an extreme example, but believe me when I say that it doesn't take this extreme case to experience these problems. Many players unfamiliar with the obtuse leveling system will find themselves falling further and further behind the enemies of Cyrodiil, and this in turn makes enemies feel like damaged sponges that can one-shot you. Basically, everything becomes a walking tank. This isn't just because you didn't level up combat skills, though. This is because you didn't take part in something known as efficient leveling. Now, dislike the leveling system all you want. I think once you understand it, it's both fair and an interesting way to keep tabs on the skills and overall usefulness of your character. That's because every time you level up, you get to choose 3 attributes to apply bonuses to. But what you may notice on a level up is that those bonuses are different. Where one attribute has a +1 bonus, another attribute may have a +5. The answer is that every skill can be placed into a specific attribute category. Blade, blunt, and hand-to-hand are assigned to strength, while alteration, destruction, and restoration are assigned to willpower. Unfortunately, nothing is set to luck, and that is the reason that it can only ever be boosted by 1 for level up and makes it super annoying to get to 100. The bonus that is applied to the attributes is based on how many skills within its category were raised before the character leveled up. 0 skill points offer a +1 bonus. 1 to 4 offers a +2, 5 to 7 a +3, 8 to 9 a +4, and 10 skill points will bestow a +5 bonus. Now you may be scratching your head here. If 10 skill points are needed to get the best bonus, but you level up after every 10 skills, how do some of these bonuses have +2 or 3 while another has +5 at the same time? The answer is minor skills. Minor skills are still assigned to a category, but they are not related to leveling your character. Only major skills affect that. This is where efficient leveling comes into play. To be as optimal as possible, you as a player need to keep track of what skills you are leveling up and their categories. If you want 3 separate attributes to have a +5 bonus on level up, you need to make sure 3 separate attribute categories gain 10 skills total, either major or minor ones. By doing this and making sure you level up combat skills to stay powerful, you will quickly begin to move ahead in progression with each level. Players that level like this can become powerhouses very easily, but there's some drawbacks. For one, this knowledge of how leveling works can consume you as a player. If we gain enough major skills to level up, your minor skills that you gain before sleeping to confirm the level will not continue to contribute to the bonus of that level, but instead the bonus of the next one. Additionally, if you are gaining skills in an ability you don't plan on selecting on level up, those skills end up being essentially wasted. They still benefit you, but you lose potential bonus attribute points for the future. This can cause a form of leveling paralysis, where you don't actually play the game and experience the content because you don't want to waste skills. You're stuck constantly training until your max level or until you get burnt out, and by that point you've missed out on experiencing the world getting stronger alongside you, and you have no leveling to look forward to while you actually play through the game. Now you don't need to do this, and I in no way suggest doing this if you want to have an enjoyable experience. Efficient leveling of that magnitude is not necessary to keep ahead of the enemies, but having the knowledge of how the system works and keeping certain aspects of this in your mind can help you play the game while still managing to get important bonuses. Let's use my gameplay style as an example. I personally like to max out endurance as soon as possible because every level up rewards maximum health points at 10% of the value of your current endurance. The sooner your endurance is at 100, the sooner you are gaining 10 health points per level up, and that is very important in terms of survivability. So generally what I do is I make sure that I get armor, block, and heavy armor to increase before I fully level up so that I receive these bonuses. If I waste some other skills and bonuses, it's no problem. Generally speaking, I prefer to have 2 abilities that have a +5 bonus, and then the third goes into luck since it never gets a bonus anyway. It makes focusing on attributes a bit easier, but even if my secondary attribute doesn't get a +5 bonus, I don't see it as the end of the world. As long as endurance gets it, I'm happy, and once maxed out, I focus on something else. This allows me to take part in content while being aware of my skills that I am leveling. You might think that this system impedes on your preferred playstyle. If you want to wear light armor, but heavy armor is necessary for endurance, what do you do? There's a few options here. For one, there's trainers. Back in Morrowind, trainers could be used to level all the way to 100 without limits as long as the trainer had the relevant rank to train you. It's a great way to cause this paralysis effect I mentioned previously. It's very easy to make money in Morrowind, so you may find yourself just working through menus for hours instead of actually playing the game. Oblivion tries to remedy this by only allowing you to train 5 times per level regardless of which skill you're training. Trainers slightly remedy the problem, but they don't fully fix it, so what else can we do? This is where we double back to character creation. The reason it is so important to make your own class or make an informed decision in choosing a class is because we can select what our major skills are going to be. By choosing our major skills, we can select things we don't use often and that do not passively level up. If you have acrobatics as a major skill, it would level up passively just by walking around, and you would gain levels faster than is desirable. If you set the majority of your major skills to abilities you won't use often, you can wear and use whatever items you want and not worry about forcing a level up by raising your skills. Only when you want to level up would you need to focus on those other major skills. Don't get me wrong, this is far from a perfect system. The fact that I have been explaining the concept of leveling this long shows just how obtuse it is. Even if you set up your skills properly and play properly, many other players are not going to do this, and it is going to cause them to fall behind and have a worse overall experience, forcing them to turn the game difficulty down. It's not a good system, and it can punish you for playing the game as the developers expect you to play it, by going around and exploring rather than keeping track of every skill all the time. There's something wrong here, and it's understandable why so many people hate the game's leveling system, and I am not going to defend it. What I will say is that with just a basic understanding of the system, a custom class, and a bit of conscious thought involving your skills while playing, you should be able to create a character that will experience a challenging game world, but nothing overly difficult. There's further ways you can abuse the system though. If you max out some skills but still need bonuses, you can get imprisoned by committing a crime. Every 100 gold of a bounty on your head is 1 skill point lost if you serve time in jail, so you can essentially reset skill values if done strategically. Of course, that's a whole metagaming topic that the typical player won't be dealing with, so I'm only mentioning it offhand. You could even make a powerhouse level 1 character by making all of your combat skills minor and never leveling a major skill, allowing you to steamroll everything. Classes have one of 3 specializations, those being combat, magic, and stealth. Each of these specializations has a set of skills that will gain a +5 bonus, and all of the listed skills will level up faster as well. This can be used to your advantage if you are making some key skills minor instead of major. You also need to choose 2 favorite attributes that will add +5 to each selection. Again, I go with endurance for my health bonus, and I go for luck because it's the slowest to max out. Any bonuses to luck are worthwhile. Each attribute affects you differently. Strength affects encumbrance, fatigue, and melee damage as an example. Endurance also affects fatigue as well as maximum health level up, as I mentioned previously. Luck is special and it affects everything in the game. Behind the scenes, all of your skills are modified by using an equation I'm not going to get into. You always start with 50 luck, which means it doesn't affect you at all. Higher luck provides bonuses, while lower luck does the opposite. Essentially, these hidden bonuses are 40% of your luck stat that is over 50. So if you had 100 luck, your skills would have a hidden 20-point bonus. Luck also affects the health of the gladiators when betting in the arena, as well as the chance of a specific dagger instant killing an enemy. Once the class is created, Boris will stay to guard the Emperor's body and send you on your way. What follows is another short dungeon segment, and when you will get hit with the classic barrage of Bethesda DLC notifications as everything begins to activate. As you make your way to the exit, the game will give you one last chance to change anything you don't like about your character. If you want, I never use this mechanic. Once finished, you can exit the sewers and finally take your first glimpse of Cyrodiil. If this is your first time playing an Elder Scrolls game and you don't really know what you're doing, I think the beginning moments of exiting the sewers are fantastic. You may truly feel like you can go off and do anything without focusing on the main quest. If you're looking for a more thorough role-playing experience, or you played the games in the past, this may be more difficult. It's been made very clear to you as the character that you have to get the Amulet of Kings to Joff. Amulet of Kings from the leader of the cult, Mankar Cameron. After handing all of our gear to Harrow, we can continue on following him to the ritual site further in the cave. Harrow will have all of our gear on his person, so if you are particularly high in sneak, you can steal some of it back from him to make the next section easier. I personally just chose to kill him first when the time was right. Harrow will take us to the ritual site where we will finally get to see Mankar Cameron in person as he addresses the members of his cult with words from Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction. Dagon is promising all of his followers the chance to rule over the other mortals once he reaches the plains of Oblivion and makes his way into Tamriel proper. Unfortunately, before you can retrieve the amulet, Mankar disappears to a location he calls Paradise, taking the amulet with him. It's not much of an introduction to a character that is one of the main antagonists in the storyline. In fact, we won't really hear from or interact with Mankar until we are on our way to kill him, which I feel is a bit disappointing interesting overall. It's like I said, the game is about offering a power fantasy where you are the hero. All Mankar has to do is be the villain. Any other depth or interactions with him is negligible. Not that there isn't any, it's just minimal and not important. I don't personally appreciate that, but you may not care. Earlier I mentioned that there was a choice you had to make here, and that's coming up momentarily. Once Mankar has disappeared, Harrow introduces you to Ruma Cameron, Mankar's daughter. As a form of initiation, Ruma asks you to take a silver knife next to a book that Mankar left on an altar before he vanished. This book is the Mysterium Xarxes and was given to Mankar by Dagon. If you have a keen eye, you'll see that its cover is also the cover art for the game. The book has the ability to be a powerful corrupting force to anyone that reads it, requiring readers to have some form of magic protection. Later, Martin will mention that even holding the book is dangerous, implying that what Mankar read within may have put him down the path not totally of his own free will. We'll come back to the book in a second, but Ruma wanted us to grab that knife. By a nearby statue is an unconscious Argonian prisoner named Gelius. In order to prove yourself, you are to sacrifice Gelius by killing him with the knife. You may think this is some sort of big morality check in the game, but as we have already figured out, this is not the intended design of Oblivion. Instead, the choice is entirely up to you. Killing Gelius does have a benefit, even if it's small. If you do so, the Mythic Dawn will welcome you, and you can wait around for a more opportune time to grab the Mysterium Xarxes. If you refuse to kill Gelius, you'll have to fight through a larger group of cultists right away. Either way leads to combat, but one may be a bit more optimal. Isn't that kind of weird? That to frame the advantages and disadvantages of killing some random Argonian you don't know, the decision can fall on what is the most optimal rather than what is the most immoral. If you're wondering, keeping Gelius alive is actually the more beneficial option, but you have to keep him alive throughout the entirety of your escape. So what I end up doing is killing Harrow first to get back all of my gear. How he managed to hold all of it, I'll never know. Once I have everything, I kill the rest of the cultists in the immediate area and then wake up Gelius, who will immediately flee. It's important to wake him up before grabbing the Mysterium Xarxes, as once you do, the statue above Gelius will crumble and potentially kill him anyway. He'll mostly keep himself out of danger, but you do still have to be careful while clearing out the caves. So we kill everyone, wake up Gelius, and grab the book. Then we make our way to the exit while killing more cultists as we go. Once we exit, Gelius will thank you for saving him. You don't actually need this interaction for him to head back to the Imperial City, but without it you may not realize he works in the temple where you can find him a few days later. If you go and visit him, Gelius will reward you with a point in restoration, mysticism, and alchemy, making it more worthwhile than killing him. Again, this is the most important factor to me on whether he lives or dies. We can return with the Mysterium Xarxes to Cloud Ruler Temple and offer it to Martin to begin researching the contents within. Since we again lost the amulet, the only hope is that the book may offer a means of entering this paradise that Mankar disappeared to. Overall, a rather lackluster quest that could have been much more with a focus on the infiltration of the cult. It doesn't help that what follows is essentially a filler mission to give Martin time to research the book. The next quest is called Spies, and I'm not going to go into it too much. Essentially, Joffrey believes that there are some cultists about, and we have to do some more detective work to root them out and kill them. It's silly, unimportant, and a weird inclusion considering this research could be a perfect excuse for you to go off and do something else. This is what Morrowind was good at. You could continue through the main storyline if you wanted, but you were often given points to breathe as a means of explaining why you would be off becoming the head of the Mages Guild or something. The biggest revelation of the quest is that there is an impending attack on Bruma that we'll have to deal with later. When we return to Martin, he has learned of one of the ingredients necessary to open the portal, a Daedric artifact. I haven't gone into detail about it yet, but Oblivion has a set of quests in the game that have level requirements. These are Daedric quests where you help out the various Daedric princes with a task by visiting their shrine and usually making a specific offering of some kind. There are 15 in total, with the first one being accessible at level 2 and the rest unlocking as you reach various levels up to 20. The final level 20 Daedric quest can only be accepted if all the others have been completed and we have reached this part of the main storyline. There are 17 Daedric princes in total, but only 15 shrines. This is due to Mehrunes Dagon being the antagonist of this entry, and Jiggalag being the antagonist of Shivering Isles, plus other reasons with Jiggalag, as we'll see. If you are wondering why these quests are leveled, my best guess would be due to the fact that the rewards range from mediocre to phenomenal. in usefulness. Most players who are unaware of how useful these items can be will often take up the suggestion from the quest to visit the Shrine of Azura and give up the reward of Azura's Star, but that is a grave misstep, as the star is a soul gem that cannot be destroyed with grand level storage, meaning it can be filled up multiple times. What I'd like to do now is travel around Cyrodiil and visit each of the shrines while picking up some quests from the towns we haven't visited along the way. As of writing this, my character is around level 15, but through completing the Daedric and town quests, as well as my own exploration, we should end up fairly close to 20, if not surpassing it, by the time we reach the need for the prerequisite. The Shrine of Azura is situated north of Shadenhall and close to the Dagon Shrine we had just visited in order to obtain the Mysterium Xarxes. It makes sense why Azura is the Daedric quest you are suggested to complete, as it becomes available at level 2 and is potentially the first shrine you stumble upon that has a fast travel point close to it. Again, I would say that this is a mistake I imagine some newer players would make, though. While there's nothing wrong with completing this quest as early as possible, giving up Azura's Star could be seen as a big mistake by many that find use of its utility. Many of the artifacts are not as useful as others, making the choice not too difficult once you have everything in your possession. There is one I plan on sacrificing just because Martin has interesting dialogue involving it, and it's not incredibly useful. From a design perspective, I'm surprised that the developers opted for suggesting Azura's Star, as I don't believe it's made abundantly clear how Daedric shrines work to the player or how useful the rewards could be. While you can ask around towns and the other odd locations about the shrines in order to have them placed on your map, it may have been better to get this out of the way by having Martin or some of the blades place them all at once for you, allowing you to understand just how many shrines there are and allow you to explore their quest lines and rewards before deciding what to sacrifice. You can do that anyway, but not in a way that I think prevents the player from sacrificing the first artifact they come into contact with. Just a personal gripe, because I traded off Azura's Star when I was younger and it took me a long time to realize its use. I mentioned that most shrines require a level prerequisite as well as an offering of some kind. The offering is different depending on the shrine, and you can usually learn what is necessary by talking to the NPCs around the shrine that worship the Daedric prince that the statue represents. Another reason why Azura is so easy for newer players to complete is because she requires an offering of glow dust. If searching for a will-o-wisp to kill so you can obtain glow dust sounds contrived, 1, there are worse offerings yet to come, and 2, the shrine is surrounded by them, making the collection of glow dust a simple affair. The Daedric quests themselves aren't always that special. Some are creative while others are plain and straightforward. Azura here has some followers of hers that have locked themselves in a nearby gutted mine. These worshippers stay there after being afflicted with vampirism, and Azura wishes to have you end their suffering through death. That's really straightforward. Just go to the mine and kill the vampires. And you may be thinking to yourself, oh, he's finally going to talk about the vampire cure quest, but no. I probably won't be covering that until we get the option to willingly become a vampire through a certain faction. Your reward for killing the vampires is Azura's Star. I explained this a bit already, but enchanted weapons have limited uses. You restore those uses by spending soul gems, but these gems also need to be charged. A petty soul gem can hold at most a petty soul, while the largest grand soul gem can hold a grand soul or any soul level lower than that. You collect these souls from monsters and wildlife, as human-like souls cannot be placed into normal soul gems. There is an alternative for this, and you will actually need one for an offering later. The easiest way to get these souls is by killing creatures that have been hit with a soul trap spell before the spell wears off. If you kill them like this, their soul will be placed in the best option of your empty gems in your inventory. There's a weapon we are going to grab later that has the highest base damage in the game and comes with a soul trap enchantment, meaning every time you hit something with it, the spell will be applied. Thus, when they die, the soul will be placed in a gem. You then destroy these gems to recharge your weapons. The thing about Azura's Star is that it's a grand soul gem that cannot be destroyed, meaning that you can fill it up with souls and then spend those souls on enchanted weapons without losing the Daedric artifact. This is incredibly useful when used in conjunction with the powerful weapon I mentioned earlier. You will end up with a virtually infinite source of enchantment charged through the mechanic, and that means your enchanted weapons will always be effective. You can see why the artifact is so valuable and why sacrificing it to Martin would be a mistake, something I think the developers should have better worked around. In terms of completion order, I am doing the shrines based on what level they unlock, as they are listed on the UESP wiki. That means Shea Gorath is next, but the shrine is fairly close to Breville, meaning that we are going to stop there and get some quests done before progressing. One of these quests is a particular favorite of mine, but let's first talk about the Forlorn Watchman. Just kidding, the Inn of Ill Omen is near Breville and Leyawiin, so it makes sense to stop there real quick. Lucian asked us to assassinate someone that was staying there, and it's a simple affair. You can ask the innkeeper about Rufio, and he will let you know that the man is staying semi-permanently in the basement. If you head down, you can usually find him asleep and perform a sneak attack for an easy kill. If you're wondering why we are killing Rufio, it needs to be explained that a ritual is completed by individuals who want someone killed. The ritual is known as the Black Sacrament. An individual must create an effigy of the victim using actual body parts before praying to the Night Mother, the technical leader of the Dark Brotherhood who they all pray to. Why this works, I'm unsure. I suppose it's just to please the spirit, but I don't know of any payment that actually takes place, making me wonder how the Brotherhood manages to operate efficiently and reward you for completing your contracts. An individual named Claudius Arcadia took part in the Black Sacrament to have Rufio killed due to him murdering an unknown female character that seemed connected to Claudius in some way. As a nice attention to detail, you can actually find Claudius in the Imperial prisons after getting arrested for performing the ritual, suggesting that the guards know about the Dark Brotherhood and it's against the law to pray to them. Of course it would be, but sometimes these factions aren't believed to be real by common folk. Once Rufio is dead, you need to sleep in a safe bed. I don't know what constitutes a safe bed, but some work and some don't. An inn is probably your best bet. Once you take a snooze, Lucian will appear before you again and make you a member of the faction, instructing you to go to Shadenhall and enter an abandoned house. There you will find a door and must answer a question that opposes with "Sanguine, my brother." It's not the time to return to Shadenhall just yet, but we are getting closer to that point. Not much closer, but closer. Breville is one of the poorest cities in Cyrodiil. Rather than your typical homes seen within most cities, these are shacks stacked upon one another. It's similar to the waterfront district in the Imperial City where we bought our first home. Yeah, you get to buy a shack for 2,000 gold there. I haven't brought up the topic of player housing much yet because it's kind of an underutilized aspect of the game until the DLC. For the most part, homes act as a safe space to store extra gear and loot that you don't want to sell. Mechanically, you can get by with the cheapest home, which is the shack I mentioned in the Imperial City. What makes the homes a little more interesting and expensive is that many of them require you to visit a merchant for upgrades. You can purchase a dining room upgrade and a storage upgrade in your waterfront home as an example. These purchases aren't furniture themselves, but some sort of note-like key item that will automatically change the look of your house's interior when purchased. This also means you can haggle to try and get a better price out of them, as the base prices of the upgrades usually end up being similar to the price of the house. Chances are you will spend more due to the game's mercantile mechanics. At its core, the player housing system is bare bones at best. It's meant to act as storage and as a money sink for role-playing purposes. The longer you play and progress through Oblivion, the easier it becomes to make gold, and you're going to want to spend that gold somewhere, so here you go. It gets the job done while leaving something to be desired. Luckily, this isn't always the case. A few houses in the game have quests tied to them, so we will discuss those as they arrive. There's one in Skingrad that we haven't talked about even after visiting there because it's the most expensive house to purchase in the game. And
oh, beautiful art.
So at the time,
thank you, Death
Where player
Sword.
housing becomes more interesting is in the house in
Welcome.
DLC. These are themed DLC homes for the player that usually focus on a specific playstyle, such as melee, magic, and thievery. We're not going to focus on those just yet, as I'm waiting until we are closer to factions to do so, especially since Frostcraig's Spire is directly connected to the Mages Guild locations within each city. Anyway, Breville is a poor city, and therefore buying a home there is relatively inexpensive. Not that the value of the city seems to matter in this game. I could have preferred to spend more to buy a house in the Imperial City proper rather than one on the waterfront. One of the first rumors you may hear about within Breville revolves around a ghost that appears near the shoreline every night. It's not just a rumor, as everyone seems to know about the ghost. The supernatural are also commonplace within a setting like Oblivion, so it's not surprising that people have just adapted and learned to live with these types of occurrences. That being said, no one is willing to approach the ghost even though the man doesn't seem to be hostile for fear that he may lash out at them. If you head to Banwatch Camp where the ghost usually first appears and wait until 8 p.m., he will show up and begin walking along the shore. You can attempt to talk to him, but he'll ignore you. If you follow him through the entire path, eventually the ghost will stop and converse with you. The ghost informs you that he was once Grantham Barkley, and he is now trapped within the mouth of the Panther, but it isn't immediately clear what that is. Heading back to town and asking around, you can learn that the mouth of the Panther is where the Panther River opens up into the Niven Bay. It's a dangerous area for ships due to all the rocks jutting out. If you head to the described location, you'll find a damaged ship that, for some reason, caused my game to explode into the color orange. Whenever I looked at the ship, the textures on the models around the area would all change to the off-putting color, and I don't know why. It's possible that this is due to the level of detail changes or any tweaks I made while playing, but I'm unsure. As of writing this, it's still the only time I've seen this happen, and I think would be the only time throughout the entire playthrough. I don't remember seeing it again. Credit where it's due, you don't need to gain this extra information about the mouth of the Panther to find the ship. The ghost will point in its general direction, and if you follow along, you'll reach the ship and be able to continue the quest. Within, you find a logbook that explains a mutiny took place, and during your takeover, the ship crashed into the rocks of the Panther, leading to everyone's apparent death. I know it's hard to tell, especially if you're only listening to it, but the ship is mostly fine. It didn't sink or anything like that. It was just damaged and forced to crash into the shore. How this killed everyone is beyond me, but I'm also not a sailor. A small forced stop in even slow-moving cars can cause injury, so who knows? This is like when everyone got launched out of the Ebon Hawk at the end of Knights of the Old Republic 2, which I have a video about, and you should watch it. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The rest of the quest is simple. You explore the guts of the ship and kill the ghost of one of the mutineers. Then you have to save Grantham by freeing his skeleton from the chains that bind him. Once you do, Grantham will appear and thank you for your kind deed. He then offers you a map that will lead you to a reward. A pretty nice reward from a creative sense. Having to use a map to find a hidden treasure cache underwater adds a little bit of extra immersion to the setup rather than having a ghost just hand you a bunch of gold and enchanted equipment. My favorite quest within Breville is known as Through a Nightmare Darkly, a play on the biblical phrase through a glass darkly, generally known to mean having an obscure or imperfect vision of reality, fitting since we are about to dive into a dream world of a man trapped in a never-ending slumber. If you head to the Mages Guild, there's an Argonian woman named Kade who needs some help. A friend of hers is lost and she would like your assistance in finding him, since she can't ask anyone at the guild. The reason for this is because the individual she is looking for isn't missing at all. Rather, he is lost within his own mind due to dream exploring gone wrong. Kade doesn't want her friend to be punished for this and is looking for outside help to remedy the situation. Technically inside help because I accidentally became an initiate of the guild around this time. Kade will lead you to a house where Hennetir is sleeping. She informs you that the reason she hasn't gone in herself is because Hennetir would recognize her and potentially just assume she was a figment of his dream world. Therefore, a stranger is necessary to kind of shock Hennetir into realizing he's trapped within his own dream. In order for you to enter his dream world, Kade provides you with an amulet and a bed beside him to sleep in. Sleeping too far away may cause you to not connect to Hennetir's dream, and you could find yourself locked away as well. So that's what we're going to do. We place the amulet around our neck, hop into a bed, and the next thing we know, we are transported into the mind of Hennetir, who is surprised to see us. Hennetir isn't all there at the moment. It seems as though 4 core parts of his mind, those being perception, resolve, courage, and patience, have been removed from his person and have been constructed into 4 unique tests that must be completed in order to regain them. This is where the fun of the quest comes in. Many of these tests are meant to be completed in specific ways, but depending on the stats of your character, many of them can be bypassed entirely. That's something satisfying about being expected to clear something one way, but being so mechanically superior that you can just leap across the test to the prize. It may not be fully intentional on the developer's part, but it feels like you are being rewarded for the time you have put into your character. You can perform the tests in any order, but I usually start with the test of patience. The goal of the test is to make it through the trap floors by only stepping on the safe tiles. You are provided a map and must figure out which symbols indicate safe zones based based on how they made a trail from one end of the test to another. There are 3 of these areas within the test, and they get more elaborate as you progress. Now, hilariously, you can just jump over most of these before the arrow traps kill you. I think I even made a mistake here and almost died, but the trap wasn't enough to kill me. Not to dismiss this quest because I actually love that this is an option, but it's comical in nature. We can jump over the traps in the test of patience, we run past almost everything in the test of perception, and the test of courage has us swim through a huge cavern where it's supposed to take so much time that we would run out of air. The cavern has potions of water breathing littered around to help you get through it, but I ended up not needing any of them because of how fast my character was. It's absurd, but in a goofy way that plays into the comical absurdity that Oblivion is best known for. The hardest test would probably be the test of resolve, as you have to kill 2 minotaurs to progress, but I had a staff of lightning that was so powerful it double tapped these dudes no problem. I was crying with laughter during these tests as I progressed through them because they weren't really tests at all, just comical obstacle courses for my amusement. I just looked into it, and with a high enough acrobatic skill, you can bypass the Minotaur fight entirely, making acrobatics and athletics some of the most broken abilities in the game in my opinion. Once all of the tests are completed, Hennetir will come back to his senses, allowing him to transport you back to reality. Hennetir will reward you with some scrolls or spell tomes if you have DLC installed. Spell tomes was the 7th microtransaction DLC released for the game and changed how loot for magic scrolls worked, allowing them to sometimes be replaced with a full tome that allows you to learn a random spell rather than cast it once. Since the reward from Hennetir is scrolls as flute, these have the opportunity to become tomes. It's a decent reward if you get some tomes out of it, but not great otherwise. Learning magic in this game is both easy and inexpensive. Scrolls have their use, but I find them fairly underutilized. I guess if you really aren't focusing on magic at all, they can be a good alternative, but their limited use of one cast doesn't help for consistent problems. Just level up your magic school so you can be a powerhouse. One last quest before we move on to Sheogorath, and it's another missing person investigation. Like I said, Oblivion is a detective noir thriller, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Don't try. Turns out Ursan's husband Alaron is missing, and an orc named Kurden is behind his disappearance. I hate these names. Aileron or Alaron owed some money, and Kurdan was the collector. Oddly enough, you need to raise Kurdan's disposition to at least 60 for him to divulge anything to you. I always thought this was weird because, spoiler alert, making him like us more is what is necessary to get him to betray us. Kurdan will explain that for him to let Alaron go, he wants an axe retrieved from Fort Grief, which is on an island in the middle of the Niben Bay. If we retrieve the axe, Alaron goes free. Simple enough. Except when we take the boat to get there and enter the fort, we find Alaron almost immediately and then find ourselves locked inside. Alaron informs us that Kurdan has tricked us, using Alaron as bait. We are now to be used as prey in some grotesque hunting sport where individuals pay to hunt other people within the confines of the fort. So again, we had to convince Kurdan to capture us so we could take part in his sick little game. Just an odd misuse of the speechcraft and disposition system that is glaringly obvious with a moment of thought. The game works like this. We need to kill the hunters hunting us to obtain their keys. Each key lets you get further into the fort until you fight the final hunter, and get the key that allows you to escape the fort entirely. If you thought about fast traveling away, it's not possible, as the quest prohibits you from doing so until you escape. Kind of a crazy situation to put someone in, considering how the leveling system works in this game. I could definitely see someone soft locking themselves here because they can't kill the hunters. When you bring the final key with you outside, you'll see a scripted event of Kurdan killing Alaron. Turns out Kurdan can't let you escape to give up his ruse, even if you win fair and square. The key you have is a fake, and you need to get the real key from Kurdan, who is backed by a Khajiit archer. Once the two are dead, you can get the real key and make your escape, informing Alaron's wife of his demise, but also the vengeance of killing the man that captured him. Get this though, your reward for all of this is a speechcraft skill book. A realistic reward, I suppose, since the family was in debt, but for a game that is a walking power fantasy, you would expect to get something a little better than that. Maybe it was due to the insane use of speechcraft in this questline. We are now heading to the Shrine of Sheogorath, which is unlockable at level 2 as well and requires an offering of a lesser soul gem, lettuce, and yarn. Next to Mehrunes Dagon, Sheogorath is potentially one of the most important Daedric princes within the 4th entry. This is due to him being one of the main characters within the Shivering Isles expansion. Originally, before the expansion, the shrine was voiced by Craig Sheeler, who voices the elven male characters as well as Boethia. Funny enough, I saw discussions of Craig voicing both Sheogorath and Clavicus Vile, but that isn't the case in Oblivion at least. Clavicus is voiced by Todd Howard of all people. When the Shivering Isles DLC was released, the individual voice of Sheogorath ended up becoming Wes Johnson, who I have talked about previously. In order to not cause an issue with consistency, the shrine dialogue of Sheogorath was re-recorded using Wes Johnson, but if you think about it for a second, that could still cause an issue. Since you can start the expansion before visiting the shrine, it would be odd for Sheogorath to not know who you are. To the credit of the devs, they added new dialogue lines that are dependent on how far you progressed within the DLC.
This is when I should smite you. Give you a serious smite, completely smitten. When I tell you to do something, I generally mean it. Wait, a mortal I know. Why are you summoning me? You've got things to do. You could have just stopped by to see me. Would have saved you some lettuce, you know. I believe I'm displeased. Well, this hardly seems the time to summon me. Not when order is busy invading my realm. You mortals are just a hoot. I hate hoots. This is when I should smite you. Give you a serious smite, completely smitten. When I tell you to do something, I generally mean it.
Praying to yourself, my lord?
Так.
That's not a good sign. Or perhaps it is. Prince of Madness and all that. I believe you should be attending to your duties. It is, of course, your prerogative to spend time wherever you wish. Your predecessor did have one task he wanted performed, though he never found a mortal suited for the task. There is a settlement called Border Watch that your predecessor found. This, of course, offended him greatly. They are a rather
Так,
superstitious
что я
group,
хотела
living their
дальше
lives based
сделать?
on omens and prophecies. One such prophecy, the Kashara, particular interest.
Ладно.
I'm gonna be real with you. While interesting, I don't find the reward for this quest all that useful. If not for another specific artifact, I would consider giving this one away easily. But while it isn't as useful as one may hope, it does have comedic value. In fact, the entire quest is a bit of tomfoolery since Sheogorath is the Prince of Madness. Turns out that there's a town not far from here known as Border Watch, and it's entirely populated by Khajiit. Sheo wants you to head there and ask the village prophet about the Kashara prophecy. He then wants you to make the first 2 parts of the prophecy to come true while he handles the rest. Heading to the village and talking to the shaman Ribasa will reveal that the prophecy comes with 3 signs. The first is a plague of rats, followed by a plague of famine where all of the livestock will die. As for the 3rd sign, Ribasa refuses to even mention it. It's that frightening for the people here. After you finish talking to the shaman, you can talk to the innkeeper who will mention her assortment of cheeses that she collects. The way to make the plagues happen are specific, but the quest is freeform in how you figure them out. The tasks aren't spelled out for you and require a bit of intuition. For example, Ribasa mentions that he keeps rat poison in case an infestation breaks out. So the question is, how do we bring rats? Well, rats are colloquially known to love cheese. The innkeeper mentions how she has a specific rare cheese that smells so pungent it could fill the entire town with a strong odor. If you steal the cheese, you can find a nearby cooking pot outside and place it in. Sure enough, an infestation of rats will begin to approach, causing the first sign of the prophecy to come true. Since there are all these rats, Ribasa panics and places the rat poison around. You can then pick up some of the poison and bring it to the nearby sheep pen to place in their feeding trough, cruelly killing them by poisoning their food supply. A little messed up, but it gets the job done, and who cares about morality in Oblivion? Since the animals appear to die from illness, this appears to be the second sign to the people of the town. Finally, Sheogorath orders you to stand in the middle of town and look up. The final sign is, I shit you not, dogs on fire, falling from the sky. Straight up, just a bunch of already dead animals pelting the buildings around you as the Havoc physics engine does what it's supposed to do. This causes all of the villagers to run and hide in a panic, believing the prophecy to have come true, meaning Sheogorath got to have his fun. You got to experience something unique within the game, and you can now return to him for your reward, that being the Wabbajack. Like I said, the artifact is interesting, but its utility isn't something I would consider using often. When used, the Wabbajack will turn any creature into another creature, with the options ranging from Daedra, revert back. They are once again at full health without any debuffs you may have applied to them. So it's a bit of a gamble, and it adds a bit of flavor to the combat if that's something you're looking for. But in terms of consistent effectiveness, there's better artifacts out there, and I wouldn't blame you for sacrificing the Wabbajack. You may have noticed something else here. For a lot of these Daedric quests, we are going to actively harm people. And I don't mean going vampire hunting, I mean traumatizing people, putting people in the nude, getting priests gruesomely killed, etc. A lot of bad gets done in the name of the Daedric princes, and Martin Septim knows this as he's been where you are before, serving under a Daedric prince for their own enjoyment, and Martin was rewarded for it at a point, even if it was only momentarily. My point is that there is reason to believe Martin knows that you may be committing horrible acts against living people, but to him it is necessary for the survival of Tamriel. It's another reason the developers may want you to start with the Azura quest, because the quest itself doesn't have these shaky morals. It's about bringing a bunch of vampires who are tortured by their own existence to peace, and they are openly hostile as soon as they see you. Sheogorath is about traumatizing an innocent village of Khajiit. Since we're so close to Leyawiin, it's time to get some of those quests out of the way. After helping a guard with some skooma dealers in a very short quest, we can head inside the city proper and start looking around for work. The main rumor you may hear about is how a woman has been stuck in her house with a foul odor coming from within. Hilariously, this is another quest related to Sheogorath. Even before Shivering Isles, it seems the designers really enjoyed the concept of the Mad God. Rosentia here bought a Daedric staff that ended up being cursed. An enchantment on the staff makes her compelled to not throw it away, but by using the staff she has conjured an assortment of scamps that follow her everywhere, preventing her from leaving her house. Since you're dealing with powerful Daedric magic, the Mages Guild is the next obvious stop, so you can talk to a friend of Rosentia's, Alvis Uvenum. Having looked into the staff, Alvis believes that it can be traded from one person to another, similar to how Rosentia bought it. In order to get rid of the staff, we would have to take it with us and bring it to Dark Fathom Cave, where there is a shrine of Sheogorath within. Unfortunately, there's another downside to owning the staff in that it slows you down greatly. Mechanically, this is a 20-point speed debuff, but if I'm being honest, I didn't even realize this had happened when I obtained the staff. 20 points of speed lost is a lot, but I didn't feel significantly slower by any means. In fact, this turned the quest into a simple objective of just running through the cave to deliver the scamps and their staff to the shrine. Nothing too crazy, which is fine for some quests, but this quest makes it seem like these issues are the end of the world, and I believe that should have been reflected in the mechanics. Rather than debuffing your speed, there should have been a mechanic that made it impossible to fast travel and that made you actually slow regardless of your attribute. Plus, the scamps could have caused havoc and annoyance to you and the people around you, giving better reasons as to why Rosentia stayed locked up in her home. Mechanically, it may have become a more annoying endeavor overall, but within the setting of Oblivion, that makes sense. Sheogorath didn't create the staff to help people, he created it to drive people crazy, to annoy them and make them angry. That's something we should have to suffer through as well, because that's the intended effect of the staff. Then again, maybe you consider this a reward for having such a high speed stat, similar to how we dodged all the traps in the Nightmare quest we completed in Breville. Once the staff has been dropped at the shrine, the scamps will make the cave their new home, and you can make your way back to Rosentia for a quest reward. This time is another level rank that boosts the block of blade by a decent amount. I got mine within the level 15 to 19 range, meaning it boosts each skill by 11 points, so it's not bad. Something I haven't touched on yet is that after completing the Dagon Shrine quest, more Oblivion gates have begun to pop up. Specifically, there are some static gates that appear near each of the major cities. These are relevant to a later optional quest that we will be completing, but you can get them out of the way early if you want, and the people of each city will usually thank you for it. I bring this up because sometimes a count or countess won't be willing to talk to you fully due to the presence of an Oblivion gate, forcing you to get rid of it if you want to discuss something with them. Luckily, that wasn't the case for Leyawiin, and it may be tied directly to the side quest I just mentioned. I think it is. Within the castle halls, you can find an orc. Mazoga the orc to be precise. Mazoga doesn't have a typical orc name because she was, in her own words, born under a rock and has no parents, so she doesn't need a family name. At the moment, Mazoga won't talk to you. She's only here to speak to the Count, and she seems to have been standing there for some time. If we head to the Count, he will mention that he has a task for us. When we inquire about it, he wants us to figure out what Mazoga wants and help her complete it so that she'll go away. If you inform Mazoga that you are here on word from the Count, she will finally open up to you a bit. One thing she mentions is that she expects to be addressed as a knight and demands you refer to her as Sir Mazoga, as her title would require. You can challenge her on this, but you don't have to. I like Mazoga. Out of any side quest character, I believe she becomes one that you can empathize with the most. It's hard to pinpoint, but she just feels that little bit more real than the rest of the clown people you are always talking to. Anyway, I respect her in a way and opted to show that respect by not fighting her on it. Mazoga wants you to find an Argonian in town named Weebum Na and bring him to the castle so that she can talk to him. If you go to Weebum Na, he's suspicious of the request, but his curiosity takes over and he agrees to stop by. Mazoga will ask Weebum Na where Fisherman's Rock is, and Weebum Na will explain how it's north of Leowin. She asks him to escort her there, yet he refuses unless she is willing to divulge why she wants to go, which she isn't. Not willing to back down on his request, Weebum Na leaves and refuses to escort her. With nowhere else to turn, Mazoga will explain to you that she is looking for a man named Mogan's Windshifter, who is said to be staying at the camp near Fisherman's Rock. She asks you to help her find it using the directions from Weebum Na, and since we are working for the court, we can't really disagree. That being said, Mazoga makes it clear that she doesn't want any violence, at least not until she has talked to Mogans first. When you reach the camp, you will find Mogans and his comrades staying within it. Mazoga will approach Mogans, and the following scene will play out.
Remember me?
No. Who are you?
I'm Mazoga. You killed my friend Ravindra.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're a lying bastard. You killed Ravindra, and now I'm going to kill you.
I can't remember what's happened.
After declaring her intent to kill Mogans as revenge for him killing someone named Ravindra, a battle will commence and you will need to help Mazoga survive. She is an essential, so this quest can end here and now if you don't manage to effectively protect her. It's highly recommended that you do protect her, as she is part of a second quest that follows this one. Once the battle is over, Mazoga states that she has kept her oath now that Mogans is dead. Ravindra, Mogan's best friend, had reported Mogan's gang to the guards for robbing travelers, and they killed her in retaliation before getting away. The day that happened, Mazoga became a knight by swearing a knight's oath to avenge her friend. I can't quite put my finger on it, but the backstory and her will to see her friend avenged no matter how long it takes fits perfectly with the fantasy setting of Oblivion. Mazoga is someone that takes honor seriously, and her vow or oath has become her life until this point. There are plenty of characters in Oblivion, but you would be hard-pressed to find ones that are not circus clowns both in looks and dialogue. Mazoga has some of that silliness present in her writing, but at the same time, I think she is one of the more relatable characters overall. I'm sure we've all read a revenge story before, or rather a more honorable vengeance story, and we can empathize with the person trying to make right what someone has made wrong. There are storylines we can empathize with, and I therefore found myself building more of a connection with Mazoga by sharing this battle with her than I do with most other characters in the game, leading to a quest that I look back on and appreciate. We aren't finished yet though. When we report to the Count, his reward for us is to become Knights Errant under the banner of Knights of the White Stallion. I always assumed it meant honorary knight or something, but that isn't the case. Instead, a Knight Errant seems to still be a knight within official capacity, but one that roams the land for adventures and to punish those committing foul deeds. In fact, that is the job the Count has for us at the moment. There's a gang that has been plaguing the county of Leowin. They are known as the Black Bow Bandits, led by an orc named Black Brugo. As a trial, the Count would have Mazoga and us travel to the Iliad fort known as Telepe, near Leowin, and slay Brugo, putting an end to his reign of terror. Very basic knight-style quest to be sure. Additionally, the Count is willing to pay for any black bow we return to him for some extra gold. Very simple quest. You just go to the ruins and kill Brugo plus his gang, and then you are rewarded by joining the faction. And yes, it is a faction and shows up in your stats page, so if you're trying to unlock all of them, make sure you complete the Mazoga quest properly. The reward for completing the quest is not just the title, but a key to your own lodge near Leowin. Mazoga will stay there and offer to take on the free-form quest of hunting black bow bandits for their bows to turn into the Count. This is a repeatable free-form quest you can take on for the reward of the bows you'll loot and any further loot from the bandits, sort of an introduction to Radiant quests. Overall, looking at the two quests as one package, I think it's a very simplistic yet gratifying knight's tale. We see Mazoga commit to and accomplish her oath as a knight and is rewarded for it by becoming a true knight-errant alongside yourself. It's a satisfying ending, and one that helps the world feel more alive, as Mazoga is still actively committed to her duty of killing the bandits. One final stop in Leowin has us visiting the Mages Guild to talk to Sidrasa, an alchemist who is looking for a set of rare crystals known as Garridan's Tears. Sidrasa is willing to pay you for the tears as he has a weakness for magical crystals and wants to add them to his collection. Oddly enough, he wants to keep it between the two of you as he doesn't want the Mages Guild hearing about it for whatever reason. I don't think there is an actual reason, but maybe he just doesn't want another mage getting their hands on them first. Despite this, Sidrasa suggests we are going to need the help of Julienne Phanes at the Arcane University to find the tears, which are literal frozen tears of a legendary knight. Julienne explains that Garridan was a knight who watched over a small town of farmers who were experiencing a drought. He asked a mage for a solution, and the mage suggested the Everfall drought, which is a silver pitcher that can pour endless water. A creature stood in his path and froze him, causing him to shed tears as he knew he couldn't save the farmers. It said one of the divines took pity on him and infused his crystallized tears with magic. Julienne also mentions that there's a book called Nightfall that details the story further and suggested talking to Phintius about it, meaning we are making yet another trip to his bookstore in the Imperial City. The book talks of an area known as Frostfire Glade, but it's behind an enchanted door that requires refined frost salts to open. Luckily, Julienne sells these for a modest sum, and you only need one to progress. While not required, you can head back to Sidrasa to inform him of what you have learned. He will bestow upon you potions of frost resist to help with the sharp cold of the glade. In reality, you take some damage from the glade, but nothing where the potions are absolutely necessary. You could use them or sell them if you wanted to. I ended up saving most of them for future quests because I ran into constant frost atronachs at one point. Once within the glade, you may begin to take damage near the central area. The potions are useful here still, especially since there is a frost atronach that acts as the glade's guardian and must be dealt with. 100% frost resistance makes the battle a cakewalk as long as you keep some distance. Within the very middle of the glade, you can find the frozen body of Garridan, and around him are 5 tears to pick up. Very annoying to do without a map, as the tears somewhat blend in with the ice on the ground, making them easy to miss if you aren't paying close attention. Probably would have been better to just group them all near the actual body, as it would make the most sense for them to fall there anyway. Once you have the tears, you can return them to Sidrasa for a leveled gold reward. Overall, not one of my favorite quests, as there's a lot of effort and travel that goes into it for a small monetary reward. While the reward can be upwards of 2,500 gold and more if you sell the potions, but this is pennies as you level up to a point where you are constantly looting expensive gear to sell. Not to mention the tears can sometimes clip into the ground, making the quest impossible to complete unless you are on PC, so you can no-clip under there. We're going to now take the opportunity to bang out 3 more Daedric quests before heading to Anvil, which will be the last of the cities for us to explore. We'll come back to various cities for different quests, obviously, but we'll have finally seen all of them and completed their city-specific quests shortly. Namira unlocks at level 5. They are the Daedric Prince of Darkness and Decay, and this plays heavily into the quest she has for us. While most shrines require an offering, Namira actually requires us to have a personality score of 20 or lower. This is usually possible by chugging cheap wine, depending on how high your personality is. If it's too high, you won't be locked out of the quest, but you will need to take some extra steps to lower your personality, such as a scroll, custom spell, or an enchantment. The task is actually so simple, and there's no challenge involved. Rather, it's just a means of allowing you to watch some NPCs get brutalized, which is so messed up in its own right. But I am partially on Namira's side here. You see, Namira has this group of literal basement dwellers called the Forgotten Ones. Samaritans. They live in an alien fort in pure darkness and never see the light of day. Some priests of Archaea are trying to cleanse them by bringing in torches, succumbing the individuals to the light and praying for them. All this is really doing is annoying and torturing the residents within. It's such an odd setup. I honestly feel for the little basement dwellers here because all they want to do is live here in darkness and their own filth, and these guys show up to stop them from doing that for some reason. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the priests should honestly just leave them alone. Let them live in the goop zone for eternity. Who cares? They're happy. Let them be happy. Now, if there was a peaceful resolution to this, I'd be totally fine, but unfortunately, the only way to stop these peaceful priests from bothering the inhabitants is to use an alteration spell given to you by Namira. When you cast it on a priest, it will cause their torch to go out, and I'm not joking, but they will then get destroyed by the Forgotten Ones, swooping in and attacking them while they beg for help. I shouldn't be laughing at it because it's such a messed up thing to witness, but you need to understand that we were watching this happen to a bunch of Play-Doh people where it's difficult to take anything within the world seriously. It's just so hilariously detached from reality that no matter how grisly the setting, you feel like you're just on this fun little adventure killing those silly little priests. The reward for completing the quest is the Ring of Namira. It's a very powerful ring as it reflects 12% of physical damage and 10% of spell damage. Pairing that with other reflection enchantments can help make many battles a cakewalk, and I wouldn't suggest sacrificing it to Martin when there are better options. So now we want to help Vermina, also at level 5, but this is possibly one of the hardest offerings to get your hands on. If you remember this section on soul gems, I mentioned that human souls can't be placed in them. This is true for normal gems and even Azura's Star until Skyrim. However, there are black soul gems in the world, and these gems are used to hold human souls and spend them to charge enchantments. Maybe that doesn't sound so bad to you, but the idea of spending a human-like soul is particularly bad because the world of the Elder Scrolls does have an afterlife. We see one such afterlife in Skyrim when we go to Sovngarde. But if you trap a soul in a gem, it is subject to infinite torment and suffering as it will never be able to reach its resting place. To clarify, it's not the act of trapping the soul necessarily that is the issue. I believe that if you were to trap the soul of a creature, that upon using the charge, the soul still disappears to the afterlife. However, when a black soul gem captures a sapient soul, said soul gets transferred to a plane of oblivion known as the Soul Cairn to be tormented for all eternity. Unfortunately for us, Vermina needs a black soul gem as their offering. There will be some unique black soul gems found later on for a specific quest, but for the purposes we need it, we have to make one ourselves. The requirements for creating a black soul gem are only learned during a major quest, but for the sake of the video, I'll explain now. This requires you to find white altars within several key locations, such as Dark Fissure or Wendelbeck. Every 8 in-game days from the start of the game is when the altar will be active. Once it's active, you must place a Grand Soul Gem inside and then cast a Soul Trap spell on it. This will convert the Grand Soul Gem into a black one, allowing you to use it for the offering or for more devious reasons. The quest itself has a basic premise. The Orb of Vermina has been stolen by a wizard named Arkved. Vermina wants you to retrieve the orb from the wizard's tower, but the actual retrieval is where things get a little crazy. Somehow the orb has converted the interior of the tower into the Nightmare of Arkved. It feels similar to what we witnessed during the Nightmare quest back in Reville, but more hostile in nature as it is filled with Daedra. Really, all you need to do is progress to the orb room, but I recommend exploring as much as possible to see the creative level design. For example, there's a door that leads to the outside of the tower, but you will find yourself on an island surrounded by lava rather than still in Tamriel. Or the room full of hanging corpses, the upside down furniture room, or the giant furniture room. There's plenty on display until you reach the bedroom of Arkved, where you will find him asleep. It's a special slumber where he will never wake up. If you check the notes near his body, it seems Arkved was content with being stuck in this limitless dream space using the orb as his guide, but at some point along the way, he bore witness to unspeakable horrors. Now he's stuck sleeping forever. Even if you attack him, he won't wake, leaving him to eternal torment in his own nightmare realm. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. The orb is near the notes and we can grab it and use a nearby door to generate a trapdoor outside of the true fortress, allowing us to return to Vermina to receive the Skull of Corruption. The staff allows you to target an NPC and create a hostile clone of them that will attack them on sight, kind kind of a gimmick weapon, but a cool effect that can be used to duplicate items via an exploit where you place an item on a corpse, resurrect it, create a clone of it, kill the clone, and then save and reload to get the items. How someone figured that out, I'll never know. If you don't care about the gimmick or the exploit, I would say this is a fine item to sacrifice, especially since it isn't even that valuable in terms of gold. Could you imagine selling all of the Daedric artifacts and just putting them into the market? Next we have the Sanguine quest, requiring you to be level 8 and offer a bottle of Cyrodiilic brandy. Sanguine here wants you to cause a bit of a stir at a dinner party the Countess is hosting at Castle Leowen. They give you a spell to cast once you find a way in, but how you get in is up to you. If you approach the dining hall before it's time for dinner, a guard will be blocking the door, informing you that no one is allowed entry until it's time for the party, and alludes to the idea that you'll need to be dressed a specific way to get inside. There's 3 major ways to gain access around 6 p.m. You can raise the disposition of the guard to 70+, or you can wear a high-class outfit such as royal clothes that you may find at the ruins of Castle Kvatch as an example. Alternatively, if the gear you are wearing is of high enough value, the guard will consider that dressing up and let you proceed, assuming there'd be no other reason for you to be there. Not great security, since my dressing up is a set of enchanted rings, light armor, and weaponry. Really shows that it's easy to murder these officials, and it's no surprise the Emperor ended up dead at the beginning of the game. These guys suck at their jobs. To be frank, this quest takes 2 seconds to complete. It's the aftermath that is the most involved and annoying. All you need to do is wear expensive gear, which you probably already have, and enter the dinner party. Then you cast that spell Sanguine gave you to cause everyone at the party to lose all of their clothing. But here's the issue. For whatever reason, this spell causes a brief damage to health, meaning that by casting it, you are committing assault. Within the mechanics of the game, it's assault regardless, but within the mechanics of the game. This is most likely to create a rise out of the NPCs so that they seem upset over losing their clothes. But all they are really going to do here is try to kill you. Plus you get the bounty for the assault, so you have to escape from the city and make your way back to Sanguine because, get this, you ended up naked too and lost all of your equipment, meaning it may be difficult to defend yourself. For some reason, I even saw Mizoga fighting off some guards for me. That's some real ride or die shit, so I appreciate her for that. She did die though. You'll still have the bounty after dodging the guards, so you may want to go and deal with that later. I ended up dealing with it by getting attacked by a guard in Anvil and killing him, forcing to pay an even higher bounty when I went to jail. If you had a bunch of stolen goods, don't worry, just go to where you were in prison and find the evidence chest. If you unlock it without being caught, you will gain all of your confiscated goods back. Sanguine has a chest with all of your loot, so we can get it back once we complete the quest. They thank us for our services and provide us with Sanguine's Rose, a staff that can summon a Daedra to attack a target rather than a clone. Basically, it's similar to the Skull of Corruption and, in my opinion, still worth sacrificing. Actually, this will be the artifact we sacrifice, but I feel inclined to finish the remaining Daedra quests before returning to Martin, just so that we have them out of the way. We're getting really close to one of the most broken artifacts in the game, and it unlocks at level 10. Before that though, we have Malakath and Meridia to deal with. Malakath is close to Anvil, meaning this is our chance to complete some quests there before moving on. Anvil is also where you would start the Knights of the Nine expansion, but we'll get to that later once we've completed the main storyline. I mentioned earlier that some of the houses you purchase have quests tied to them. If you talk to Velwyn Benares, he's trying to sell the manor for 5,000 gold. Even in its rundown state, that's still a steal. Typically, you would purchase a home and then purchase the individual upgrades for it, but that won't be the case here. Rather, we will get all the upgrades for free upon quest completion. Interestingly, upon buying any house, you usually receive a quest to go visit the house and then purchase the upgrades for it, thus completing it. However, there are no upgrades to purchase once you reach the manor, so you may be wondering how you complete it. Well, as a bit of foreshadowing, if you check the basement, you will find a supernatural seal on one of the walls, but you can't interact with it at the moment.
I am back.
Maybe we don't care about that. It's an old home and maybe the decorator was into that kind of thing. If you randomly decide to use the bed within the manor to sleep, you will soon find yourself accosted by ghosts and coming to realize that the manor is haunted. Once you've dealt with the ghosts, your journal will inform you that you heard a crash down in the main foyer. There you will find a broken urn on the ground. Displaced around it is a skeletal hand and a diary of one of Velwyn's ancestors. It tells of a door that can only be opened by someone of his blood, alluding to the seal we saw in the basement. In order to lift the curse, we unfortunately need to find Velwyn. But please God, make sure you take the hand and the diary entry. I left the entry by mistake and had to make 2 trips to the Imperial City because I forgot. If you're wondering what happened exactly, it turns out Vellen's grandfather, Lorgren Beneris, was digging up corpses in order to elongate his own life and effectively be immortal. When the Mages Guild found out about this, they stormed his manor to kill him, but this left the manor cursed as Lorgren had generated ghosts to guard his home. The Mages Guild were successful in their raid on the manor as it stopped Lorgren, but he disappeared during the events. This raid was led by an Altmer mage named Carahel, and we actually meet her later for a recommendation. Unfortunately for us, it seems Velwen has skipped town. We can ask at the local tavern or inn to find out that he made his way to the Imperial City. After tracking him down there, he will explain that he came to live with the rest of his family, but he wasn't allowed until he dealt with the manor. Feeling guilt over his actions and being shown the diary entry, Velwen will agree to meet you in Anvil to put an end to this curse once and for all. After making it to the basement and killing some ghosts along the way, Velwen will approach the seal and attempt to interact with it. When he does, a secret door begins to open and Velwen panics before running in fear. Past the door is a secret chamber and the skeletal remains of Lorgren on an altar. His spirit speaks to us and informs us that he wishes to atone for his actions and is merely looking to move on so he can finally rest. All he needs is his skeletal hand, which we can provide for him. Unfortunately, it was all a ruse, and this was exactly what he needed in order to be resurrected as a lich that we have to fight off. How he disappeared but also lost his hand to have it put in an urn, I'll never know. Once he's dead, we can report back to Velwen, who thanks us and heads back to the Imperial City to be with his family. Once we return to the manor, we will see it is no longer cursed and has even been repaired and upgraded for free, meaning we have a fully functional home and anvil for only 5,000 gold. What a steal! The quest is definitely worth completing if you'd like to have one of the cheaper but more expensive looking homes in the game. It's a simple step-by-step quest, but what really makes it unique is the doorway and the seal in the basement. A lot of assets get reused in this game, but I don't currently remember ever seeing this door animation used anywhere else. Always interesting to see unique things created for specific quests because that requires extra time on the developer's part, when their main goal may be to be as efficient as possible, and it is appreciated. Now there's 2 other quests to complete here at the moment, and I only realized while playing that I never completed one of them before. Even after all these years, I am still finding new experiences within the game. One that I have completed before is relatively short and requires us to go through a ship by the docks to get a crystal ball, not really worth delving into. The next quest, however, there's a rumor going around that a couple beautiful women have been seducing married men and taking their belongings from them. A wood elf directed us to talk to Gogin and Maelona, a Redguard couple said to be involved currently, as it's alluded Gogin was one of the victims. If you talk to Maelona, she will complain about her no-good husband who cheated on her and lost all of his belongings in the process. Despite this, she wants his wedding ring back if you are up for it, as it's a family heirloom. She suggests talking to her husband first before continuing. I guess the idea is that because they are married, they will be too ashamed to report the crime to the guards. This seems to have been the case after all, as none of the married men have been willing to come forward. Gogin will explain he was sitting in the Flowing Bowl Tavern by the docks when 2 women approached him. Gogin followed them to a farmhouse, and that was where they robbed him. Keep that in mind for a bit, because I feel like a development at the end of this quest doesn't make any sense. Now that we know how the women find their marks, we can head to the Flowing Bowl and take a seat. It isn't long before the women approach us and ask us to come to the farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, which is weird since we are new to the city and not married, so are we really the type of mark they're looking for, or are we not? Like, I don't understand. The interior of the farmhouse is unique, with a bunch of red curtains put up for the mood, I guess. I can tell I have never done this quest before because this room feels very foreign to me. So here's where things get weird. Faustina here asks us to get comfortable by taking off all of our gear. When we refuse, she'll ask why, and we explain that we are here for Gogin's ring, which Faustina was expecting for some reason. It turns out that the ring is a fake, which I didn't understand right away. I assumed that meant Gogin had sold it before or something, because that's just the type of husband he seemed to be. Faustina will call in her cohorts, and you'll have to kill the 2 women who lured you here, plus an additional Khajiit woman. Now here's where it gets crazy. Guess who shows up at the farmhouse? Who do you think it could be? It's two members of the Anvil City Watch, but more importantly, it's Gauguin and Melona. Turns out they are undercover agents of the Watch that were trying to catch these girls in the act. Unfortunately, none of the married men were willing to talk about it, so they want to send in a stranger, but this brings up a few glaring flaws in the plot of this side quest. Why did they target us? There is nothing to suggest we are married, and even if we are a stranger in the town, we now own property there, and even if we didn't, we could still approach the guard to complain. We could be the perfect witness, so why would they take this chance on us, especially considering we are known as the hero of Kvatch, the grand champion, and I even closed the nearby Oblivion Gate. Everyone here should know who we are, and even if they didn't, it makes no logical sense to send us in for this mission. Even more odd is that Gauguin and Melona wanted to catch the women in the act, and they already used Gauguin as bait, right? Why then couldn't they just arrest them there? If they are trying to keep their cover from being blown, would it really matter here? Is it not a more contrived solution to send a stranger who could get hurt rather than just arresting them after you already caught them in the act? It's not like they lied about it. Gauguin did go to the farmhouse, and we know this is true because Faustina complained about the fake ring. These women should have been arrested already. Instead, because the guards wanted to keep their true identities secret, 3 women ended up dead in a farmhouse when they potentially didn't have to. I think out of any quest I've completed thus far, this was the first one to be so illogical to the point of leaving me scratching my head, wondering why I was even here to begin with. Despite the odd nature of the quest, it was a nice touch of them to give you access to the basement where you can find the clothes and gear of the married men the women bamboozled. It'll even tell you who owned it, so you can now know all of the victims of the crime. They don't know you know, but you know. And sometimes that's enough. The Daedric Prince of Malakath wants an offering of troll fat and is the first level 10 prince we are going to run into. From level 10 onward, the rewards for completing these quests go from all right to unmissable. I wouldn't recommend skipping some of the quests because the rewards are just that good. Some so good I couldn't believe they actually added them to the game. Not Malakath though. His reward is alright, but overall one of the less interesting examples in the list. After making your offering, Malakath wants you to go free some ogres from the Drad estate down the road. Conveniently, most of the locations you have to explore for these quests are close to the shrine where you get them. Obviously, this is a design choice to make it easier for players to complete the quest within a contained time frame, preventing them from having to travel too far for too long. The issue is that this happens so often you start to see the pattern, especially if completing the Daedric quest in succession, and this can bring you out of the experience. Oh, you want me to go to the Drad estate to save the ogres from slavery? Good thing it's a 5-minute walk from here. Want me to kill some necromancers? Check out the cave just on the other side of the city. It goes on so often you wonder how this managed to happen. Almost every shrine of the Daedric Princes has some major issue that needs to be dealt with just to hop and a skip and a jump from their shrine. Ogres are the property of Malakath specifically. It's believed that he is responsible for the creation of the ogres as well as trolls and even orcs. Therefore, enslaving the ogres to work in the mines is a no-no in Malakath's eyes, and mine, but we'll get there. And so it's now our duty to find a way to free them. The natural first step is to stop by the estate itself. It was late enough at night that the Drads were sleeping, allowing me to break in undetected. After some snooping, I found a key that allowed entry to a nearby mine, but I didn't know exactly where the mine was yet. We need the location, and it boils down to needing to talk to Lord Drad anyway. Despite breaking into his home while he is asleep, Drad is more than willing to talk to us. Breaking into someone's home during off hours will generally have the individual rush out to you and demand you leave. However, this doesn't stop you from interacting with them. Someone could be asking you to leave in one moment and then having a pleasant conversation with you the next, as if you didn't just break their door in. Lord Drad even welcomes us into his home and thanks us for visiting once we engage with him. He'll mention his ogres and how he thinks they are brain-dead monsters who deserve to be enslaved. If you agree with this sentiment, he'll mention that they are working in Bleak Mine, which is nearby. If you denounce slavery, he won't tell you anything and you'll have to get it out of his wife using a disposition check. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan of slavery. You might be thinking, aren't ogres just mindless monsters out to kill? And the answer is no. Ogres can show signs of intelligence on par with other sentient races. Some are tacticians and others possess the ability to harness magic. While violent, primitive, and generally a threat to modern Cyrodiilic settlements, ogres are sentient beings who experience pain, sadness, and suffering. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying what the ogres do is excusable, and we fought plenty of ogres that have stood in our path along the way. We even killed a bunch just to get the Germain brothers' farm back. Ogres kind of suck ass, but despite this, I wouldn't look to enslave them for the benefit of my people, to lock them up in cages within caves so that they can mine ore and resources for my profit. What am I, Elon Musk with his emerald mine? Someone's gonna be mad with that. Someone's gonna be mad about that comment. Someone's gonna be mad about that comment. The setup that the guards have for the ogres in the mines aren't fit for any creature, really. It's a gross situation, and I can understand why Malakath wants it remedied. It's not all the time, but sometimes you can find yourself siding morally with the Daedric Prince. Pretty hilarious to see one that is anti-slavery while there are still communities in Tamriel that actively participate in it while denouncing the Daedra. To be fair, I think Malakath only really cares about his own creations or worshippers being enslaved. Who knows how he feels about other races. All of this to say that I ended up just telling Drad I don't care about the slavery thing so that he would spill the beans. The dude is gonna get what's coming to him anyway. Now, I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know if it was a bug or what. After breaking into the mine using the key I found, I ran into a bunch of guards wearing ebony and orcish armor. Each one of them would approach me multiple times and initiate conversation mentioning how I am a thief and living on borrowed time. They would do this often and without me interacting with them, but they would never do anything to me other than that. It feels like they should be hostile to me, but that doesn't seem to be the case from what I experienced. After maneuvering our way around all these Dunmer guards, we can find 2 cages that release the ogres. I used lockpicking to do this, but you can find keys on the guards that will also get the job done. Nothing special here, although it is fun to watch the escaped ogres attack all of the guards before I loot their corpses. If you return to Malakath, he will thank you for taking care of business and mention that the tables have turned for Drad. Now the ogres are in charge of the estate, and the lord and lady are now forced to till the fields for the rest of the game. Sure enough, if you stop by, you'll find this to be the case. Lord Drad is scared for his life and unwilling to talk to you as he has to get back to work. I'd call it poetic justice, but it left more of a bad taste in my mouth. We all know slavery is bad. That goes without saying. Pretty basic morality shit there, I guess. Malakath's intention is there, but this doesn't seem to be a fitting punishment. Why would we want to continue the process after freeing the oppressed ogres? I guess Malakath isn't anti-slavery after all, he just doesn't like seeing his creations be taken advantage of. A more interesting quest than I realized because I was fully on board with Malakath until this point, and it shows that even the Daedra that seem the most well-intentioned have some very dark ideas still rummaging around in their heads. Bolendrung is a 2-handed enchanted warhammer and the reward for helping Malakath. While it has drain health and paralysis for 3 seconds, I found the weapon overall underwhelming. When leveling my strength ability, I like to have a blunt option and a blade option, but Bolendrung didn't feel like a worthwhile replacement for what I was using at the time, especially since we have the Mace of Molag Ball to grab later. Still, paralysis has its uses. If this is your only means of using it, you may want to I wouldn't blame you for sacrificing it though. Once my strength maxed out, I switched to using only Gold Brand and Umbra anyway. I don't have much to say about Meridia really. It's a very straightforward quest without any creativity or nuance to accentuate it. Meridia wants an offering of mort flesh, ectoplasm, or bone meal. Then she asks you to go kill some necromancers in a cave. That's it. That's the Meridia quest. The coolest part about this quest is that the necromancers are located behind a hidden door that is camouflaged as a cave wall, and I believe this only opens for you when you have the quest active. Other than that, it's your standard cave dungeon crawl where you kill a bunch of mages and loot them for expensive gear, assuming you're a decent level by this point. I was almost, if not 20. The reward is the best part of the quest. The Ring of Khajiit offers 35% chameleon and plus 10 to your speed attribute when equipped. That's a large boost for an attribute that you can just equip at will, and since attributes actually continue to benefit with boosts that push them past the 100 point maximum, it can be worthwhile to equip it at max speed so you can benefit even further. Since the quest is so boring, I'll take some time to discuss the chameleon ability. Within Oblivion, there are 2 spells that allow you to be invisible. Invisibility is the most obvious spell, which allows you to be perfectly invisible unless you attack or interact with anything. Invisibility doesn't mean you are quiet, however, so your stealth skill and equipment can still matter here since the weight of your boots is part of the stealth calculation in terms of sound generation. Chameleon, meanwhile, works a bit differently. Chameleon also doesn't help with sound generation, at least not right away, but it is always active when you are interacting with something. If you attack someone, you don't suddenly lose chameleon status. The main benefit of chameleon is that the power of the spell is broken up into percentages. Since the Khajiit ring is 35% chameleon, that means we have a 35% out of 100% concealment bonus. You may be assuming that reaching 100% chameleon through various enchantments and spells may mean the same as invisibility without the downsides, but that's incorrect. It's actually even better. For whatever reason, reaching 100% chameleon makes you so completely invisible that you can perform any crime within the game without getting caught or being interacted with. You can steal items directly in front of someone, you can even move around murdering people without repercussions. Even sound seems to not be a factor once you reach the 100% mark. This is a highly abusable aspect of the mechanic, and basically makes the majority of the game's content completely without any challenge, aside from some select scripted events that don't take into account your visibility. Obviously I won't be using it here, but it showcases how Oblivion, like Morrowind, does have examples of allowing for the abuse of the enchanting and spellmaking systems, even if more limited than the previous game. Another example would be creating a spell that fortifies your personality and mercantile skills by 100 for 1 second. Since time stops when you interact with an NPC, you'll have the bonus stats for the entirety of the conversation, meaning you can get better deals at shops or meet disposition checks easily for a very low magicka cost and skill requirement. You can enchant yourself with a set of armor that can virtually remove all elemental damage or increase magic resistance to the point you don't care what a mage throws at you. I'll talk about the enchanting and spellmaking system later when we reach Frostcrag Spire, as we will end up there before gaining access to the Arcane University. But just to point it out, the ability to enchant and create spells is locked off from the player until they complete the Mages Guild recommendation quests, or they have the Wizard Tower DLC, making it a much more limited option at first in comparison to Morrowind, where this was possible early in many locations. Mephalla's quest is much more interesting and enjoyable. You have to offer her Nightshade between 12 PM and 6 PM, otherwise she won't answer. Mephalla knows of a town not far from here where a family of Dunmer and a family of Nords have been living in harmony for some time. Mephalla wants us to kill the leaders of the 2 families without getting caught and plant evidence on them to implicate the other. It's actually a very simple setup and doesn't require any real finessing. When you arrive at the village of Bleaker's Way, you can locate and talk to Hrol Ulfgar of the Nords and Niven Dalvalu of the Dunmers. Probably butchered that one. As long as you aren't seen during their deaths, you're good to go. Failure to not get caught leads to a quest failure and prevents you from obtaining the reward. But again, this is very easy to prevent. I snuck up on Niven in broad daylight, killed him, and people walked around his body before I planted the evidence, and it was no problem. Realistically, it would have been better if the bodies were forced to be killed within their homes or somewhere more private, helping to explain how you have to place incriminating evidence, but it's not the end of the world. This quest, like many others, isn't about being mechanically intricate, they're about setting up a payoff. The payoff here being the eventual battle between the 2 families. By searching the home of each leader, you can find a ceremonial dagger belonging to the Dalvalu family and a family ring belonging to the Ulfgars. Plant the items on the bodies of the deceased and then talk to one of the family members. Soon after, all of the village residents will come out and begin fighting one another, with the last family standing being up to chance from my understanding. As a game, and as a player, it's great to watch. Manipulating the families into a confrontation where one of them is wiped out completely. Narratively, it's a pretty messed up situation. Mephalla saw 2 happy families living in harmony and demanded the death of their leaders in order to cause a situation where one family destroys another, with casualties on either side. The lives of these people are ruined forever. An entire town left suffering because of your actions. Again, the Ebony Blade is your reward this time, and it's honestly not too shabby as a melee weapon. It has 23 base damage and is enchanted with silence and absorb health, making it powerful if you get it early on, like right at level 10. Unfortunately, depending on how you progress through these quests, we get a better blade option later on known as Goldbrand, at least in terms of DPS. Maybe you really enjoy that silence ability or something. I'm going to start the Nocturnal Quest section by saying the artifact you obtain has to be one of the best rewards in the game, as it completely invalidates an entire mechanic that you will be using constantly throughout your travels. Funny enough, it's also the return of Weebum Na for some reason. I don't actually know what would happen if you killed him before the Mazoga or Nocturnal quest. Theoretically, both are possible to complete assuming you know the locations you seek. However, if you don't, I can imagine this makes the quest nigh impossible to finish unless you get lucky by finding the location you're looking for, or you look it up online. Just something I'm curious about, but refuse to restart my game to look into. If you know, let me know. He might be essential, so that could be it. For whatever reason, Nocturnal doesn't need an offering. You just spark up conversation and they explain that the Eye of Nocturnal has been stolen. You head to Leyawiin to look into it, but this ended up taking me a while to actually figure out, as I didn't remember how to progress the quest from previous playthroughs, and I often like to attempt them semi-blind before referencing the UESP for additional information and things I may have missed. But the thing about this quest is that it isn't abundantly clear how you figure out Weebum Na and his partner are the thieves. You can ask about the Eye of Nocturnal to a few people within the city, mostly the guards and the Count, but none of them have ever heard about it. That's the only obvious option to choose from, so I ended up assuming I just had to go around asking about the Eye, but barely anyone had the dialogue option. Once I had finally exhausted most of my options, I turned to the UESP, and it turns out you need to ask a guard not about the Eye of Nocturnal, but about Leyawiin specifically, allowing him to inform you that Weebum Na and his partner have been bragging about some sort of big haul. So yes, I didn't find that very clear. Hypothetically, I could have just exhausted everyone's dialogue options instead of looking for a specific one, but many NPCs repeat themselves. Sometimes you're pulling your hair out trying to get a specific rumor out of the city's NPCs, but all they do is keep telling you about Kvatch and the Oblivion Crisis. You get conditioned into only asking what seems to be the correct option, so it was a curveball when I had to ask about the city specifically, as that usually just leads to the NPC describing aspects of the city to you. You can head to Weebum Na's home and interrogate the couple about the Eye, but they deny having any idea what you were talking about. What you have to do then is leave the house and then re-enter it while stealthed, so they will begin talking without realizing that you are within earshot. The two then reveal that the Eye is hidden within the nearby Tidewater Cave, which is infested with trolls and bears. Trolls don't swim, meaning the Eye is safe within the cave, but bears seem to, and I tried to rush to the Eye only to be mauled severely and then trapped within the cave. After eventually escaping with the Eye, it can be returned to Nocturnal for the Skeleton Key, a Daedric artifact that boosts your security skill by 40 as long as it's in your inventory. That might sound alright by itself. A 40-point boost to security will make lockpicking significantly easier, but the Skeleton Key has another mechanical function. By keeping the key in your inventory, it will always be used instead of traditional lockpicks when you attempt to unlock a door. The Skeleton Key cannot be broken, meaning you now have access to an infinite supply of lockpicks for the entirety of the game, assuming you keep the artifact on you. I've explained a bit about security already, but what's important to point out is that you don't have to fully participate in the minigame anymore. You can attempt to automatically unlock something without going through the full process. If you succeed, all the tumblers will move into place and the object will be unlocked. If you don't succeed, your lockpick will break. Your chance of an automatic attempt being successful is based on your security skill and the difficulty of the lock. Maybe you see where this is going. If we have the Skeleton Key, all we need to do for any lock in the game is activate it and then spam the auto unlock button until it inevitably opens. The entire concept of the lockpicking minigame has become obsolete with this one Daedric artifact. That means anything and everything is now available to you regardless of your security skill, which is 40 plus by this point. As long as you aren't seen, you can break in and steal whatever you want with no worry any longer. Things like the Draconian Madstone, which we retrieved for the Countess of Bruma, are now easily stolen from the display case she keeps them in, and I am sure you could find plenty of other opportunities to abuse this item. It's one that will be particularly useful when completing the Thieves Guild faction or even the Dark Brotherhood. It should be obvious why you wouldn't want to sacrifice this item unless you really like the lockpicking minigame for some reason. Having this item is one of the best passive bonuses in the game, and you can obtain it as early as level 10. Following a rather easy and simplistic Daedric quest is one of the worst quests not only in the Daedric line but potentially in the entirety of the game. Periate, similar to Nocturne, does not require an offering. This is because being able to function is the bare minimum Periate needs of you to complete their task. Once you reach the shrine, you'll notice that all of the worshippers are standing in a circle, unable to move or interact with you. Discussing this with the Daedric Prince reveals that their followers attempted to summon Periate in a foolish ritual that has left them trapped between worlds, with their bodies in Tamriel and their souls stuck within Oblivion. Now you are tasked with being sent to the plane in order to retrieve the souls so that they may be returned to their rightful bodies. I've already discussed how Oblivion overstays its welcome with the gates and becomes a repetitive trek throughout the various random worlds in an attempt to obtain a sigil stone. One of the aspects that makes these trips so grating after the umpteenth time is the constant amount of hostile Daedric enemies and creatures found within. Scamps, Clanfear, Spider Daedra, Atranax, etc. Each time you enter a gate, you are met with countless enemies to work your way through, but you don't necessarily have to do that. Rather, you can just rush past everything and make your way to the top of every tower, grab the sigil stone, and repeat. Fighting Daedra over and over again takes time, costs resources, and overall is just an unrewarding experience unless you are really pushing for combat skill progression. You can imagine then how awful the concept of being sent to a huge plane of Oblivion would be when your only means of escape is working your way through the land, fighting Daedra until you find all 5 of the worshippers' souls. The good news is that similar to a typical Oblivion experience, you can bypass the entirety of these fights by running past them and interacting with the souls once you reach them. But that shouldn't have to be the best or most entertaining option. If the game is littering itself with enemies and expecting you to fight them, these fights should be somewhat enjoyable in nature. On their own and in fewer numbers, sure, combat in Oblivion can be a satisfying experience, but there's only so many Daedroth you can cut through before all you want to do is finish the quest and get the hell out of there. It's such a slog, and it's disappointing because we know that the team can do better because they have done better in previous quests. Sure, the Oblivion gates are a wash, and we can attribute that to there being so many to enter, but you should expect more out of the Daedric Shrine quests because many of them have shown how unique they can be. There's one later where we head into Oblivion to take part in a tournament of combat, and another where we explored a wizard's tower that had been distorted into a nightmarish hell world. It's possible for these Oblivion-like areas to both be unique and entertaining, but the Periate quest just feels like you've been asked to kill as many Daedra as possible in an uninspired landscape that once again overstays its welcome, forcing you to brute force your way through it in order to keep your sanity. The only real upside is that the reward is one of the better shields in the game. Spellbreaker is a heavy armor shield with a 30% spell reflection rate. You don't even need the block for this effect to be active, just having it equipped is enough. By this point in the game, I had so much spell reflection that I imagine any mage hitting me was doing near equal damage to themselves. Luckily, the Hircine quest is a little more enjoyable to take part in, especially due to an underutilized mechanic that adds a bit of flavor to it overall. Hircine is the Daedric Prince of the Hunt and expects an on-brand offering of either a bear or wolf pelt. If you can, try to grab a lion pelt somewhere too, as you'll need it for the next shrine immediately following this one. Hircine is the first of 2 level 17 Daedric quests, and the reward is one of the better light armor pieces in the game. To please Hircine, they want us to take part in a hunt for a rare creature, that being a unicorn of all things. That might sound wacky as hell because you've probably never seen a unicorn outside of this quest, but I guess that's because they are just that rare. And now Hircine wants it murdered for the clout, I guess. Hunting something so rare is a big achievement because how often do you get to do that or something? I don't understand the appeal, but I'm also not a Daedric Prince, so maybe I'm missing something. The unicorn is a tough fight. I don't think I realized it much at this point in the game because I was packing an assortment of Daedric artifacts, including the Ebony Blade, which has a silence ability. Since the unicorn can deal heavy damage while also reflecting it and has multiple resistances, it's possible the silence nerfed some of that, but I'm unsure if it would actually have any effect. Silence probably just stops the casting of spells. Still, since the Ebony Blade has an absorb health ability as well, any reflected damage would be offset by the healing generated from fighting. Not to mention how easy it is to just dodge a horse attack in this game. The most powerful attack does no damage if it doesn't hit you. I will say though, if you plan on hoofing it everywhere instead of using fast travel and you happen to be broke, you could consider using the unicorn as a mount of all things. It's one of the faster horses in the game and has all of those combat advantages I mentioned earlier. The downside is that the horse aggroes to anyone that is either hostile or has a weapon of any kind drawn, including you. The moment it senses your presence with a weapon out, it will attack you. The quest to kill it is a little more difficult on top of this because 3 minotaurs roam the fields around it. I personally ended up killing the 3 minotaurs by kiting them away from the unicorn and then snuck up on the animal in order to ride it. Still, it aggroed to me once I dismounted and I had to kill it for the quest anyway so I could retrieve its horn. Just a small interesting mechanic that you'll most likely only have one opportunity to take advantage of, so you might as well try it. Those little things are what add to the presentation after all. Better to experience them all. For returning the horn, you obtain the Savior's Hide from Hircine. It's a light armor chest piece. It's a light armor chest piece that is on par with a glass cuirass. Glass being the highest tier of light armor in the base game, although there are better unique options here and there. While the defense is relatively the same, the Savior's Hide only weighs 3 units while the glass cuirass weighs 15. It also comes with a resist magic enchantment of 25%, so a pretty decent chest piece to wear for a good while until we find something better, which isn't too far off as we'll be covering the micro DLC add-ons soon. If you got that lion pelt I mentioned, you can deliver it to the Shrine of Molag Bal so you can take part in one of the most messed up quests in the game. All Molag Bal cares about is suffering and enslavement. He detests the honorable and wants to see them fall from grace and damn them so he can enslave their souls for all eternity. Just so happens that there's a man in a village here that fits the bill perfectly. Melus Petilius is an ex-paladin who would often go off performing good deeds such as destroying a minotaur's nest and defending the town of Brindleholm from goblins. The people of Brindleholm will tell you as much when you arrive and ask about him. Unfortunately, Melis's wife passed away while he was out on one of these adventures, and he never forgave himself for not being with her on her deathbed. Now he has made an oath to never raise his weapon against another individual and lives a life of solitude and peace, only ever leaving his home to visit his wife's grave. Sounds like a great guy, so you may be bummed to hear we are about to permanently ruin his life for the rest of eternity. Volleyball hands us a cursed mace and demands we have Melus not only attack us with it, but actually kill us in the process. Fair enough, I guess. If you get hit with the mace, you probably aren't going to get back up again. Melus only leaves his home at 10 a.m. every morning to stay by his wife's grave. He isn't one for conversation, so there's no dialogue options that can be used to sway him into attacking you. It's actually a really contrived and obtuse way of doing things in comparison to Morrowind. For Melus, we can only get him to attack us by placing the mace near him while he is at the grave. If we attack him at the grave specifically, he will feel we besmirch the honor of both him and his late wife, and then attempt to kill us by picking up the mace. Even if you attack him constantly at his home, I don't believe he would raise a hand to defend himself. It's just oddly limiting when there were better ways to do it in past games. For example, we should have been able to lower his disposition enough to the point where he hated us so deeply he felt compelled to attack us, suggesting we could have used speechcraft to goad him into it. Unfortunately, speechcraft doesn't work like that. Speechcraft is only beneficial in terms of raising disposition and convincing people to help you, except for that one orc who we convinced to betray us by locking us in a fort on an island. Still upset about the logic in that one. In Morrowind, you could goad individuals and lower their disposition to a point where they would finally have enough and begin attacking you. This was actually great for quests where you needed to kill someone but didn't want a bounty or infamy. By having them attack you first, they are now labeled as a criminal, and the mechanics of the game allow you to kill them freely. Guards may even help you in the process. Something similar would have worked well in
Ballerino
quests like this and
cappuccino.
acted as a nice
Oh,
showcase
нет.
system. If speechcraft and conversation had been developed a little better. If there's one thing I appreciated about Morrowind, it was the dialogue and conversation option system. I will say to its credit, the concept of leaving a weapon on the ground for a hostile NPC to pick up is a cool showcase of the Radiant AI system. It just really loses its impact when you attack Melus and he grabs the mace to attack you back, only for it to do such minimal damage that you have to take off all of your gear so that he can get the job done. The amount of time it took him to kill me must have been excruciating to the player character. Once you reach under 20 points of health, the game will consider you murdered and you will be teleported back to Molag Bal. I don't know how much time is supposed to have passed by this point, or if time passes at all. Knowing the developers, they probably didn't account for that, but maybe they did, so I'll try to have a positive outlook on that. I say this because Melus must have killed us and seen our body drop to the ground. Do we need a day to pass so Melus can leave his house and our body can disappear from sight? What happened between our apparent death and now? These are questions that would be nice to have answers for from Molag Bal, as they help to create a sense of realism around the events that transpired. This is especially important because once we are resurrected, we can immediately return to Melis, who will become frightened at the idea of us being alive, since he was sure he killed us and now feels tormented over it forever, believing we are haunting him. A pretty messed up quest, like I said, just leaving a little bit of extra narrative logic to be desired. The reward is the Mace of Molag Bal. I assume it is just the unlocked version of the cursed mace Melis used to kill us. It's alright. It absorbs strength and magicka, so you become slightly more powerful when using it in combat and can counterspell users. But overall, it's not very special, especially since we are about to receive Gold Brand as well as a slew of enchanted equipment in the next Daedra quest. Boethia has a quest I mentioned earlier where we get sent to the Plains of Oblivion to participate in a tournament of champions. After offering them a Daedra heart, Boethia will ask us if you are attempting to become one of their chosen. You must prove yourself by taking part in the Tournament of 10 Blood, referencing the 10 major playable races in the game. You end up taking the place of whatever champion would represent your race and then must systematically take out the champion of every other race as you progress through the plane. This is similar to the concept of arena battles, except you get to loot the bodies. Since Boethia is a level 20 quest, all of the champions will have some sort of combination between lower tier equipment and items of the highest tier. You'll see a lot of glass and Daedric armor at this point, as well as some enchanted gear, making the event very lucrative if you have the space to hold a lot. High strength and the feather enchantment can help out here a lot. It's Boss Rush Arena 2.0, where the reward is a bunch of gear and finally Gold Brand as the prize for becoming the champion. In terms of damage, Gold Brand is 3 points off from the strongest sword in the game, but it also has a 22-point fire damage enchantment, which makes it a real powerhouse. The reward for the next quest we are about to take part in pairs with it and Azura stars so well that you will never need to worry about soul gems or weapons again. I'm of course talking about Clavicus Vile, who I mentioned is voiced by Todd Howard of Chess Club fame. They're the Prince of Trickery and Bargains, which makes sense considering we have to pay them 500 gold in order to have an audience. You'll notice that there is a dog statue alongside Clavicus by the shrine. This dog is what makes Clavicus one of the more interesting Daedric princes overall within the overarching narrative of the Elder Scrolls, and you'll understand why momentarily. Clavicus is after a sword that holds the soul of a hero that Clavicus has dealt with in the past. In return for fetching the sword, he will offer his mask, which is a headpiece that fortifies personality by 20 points. A pretty bunk reward considering how useless personality is in comparison to all of the other attributes. Clavicus informs us we should start searching in a nearby village known as Pel's Gate. However, when traveling there, you will begin to hear talk from a dog statuette that has magically appeared within your inventory. The Hound of Clavicus Vile in name, but in reality is a shapeshifter who is only sometimes seen as a dog. Barbas has been many things and has appeared in previous entries. He was Creeper, a scamp who lives in a manor full of orcs. Many players become familiar with Creeper as he was one of the few merchants in Morrowind to have a huge supply of gold, 5,000 to be precise. As a creature merchant, Creeper would always buy items at their base value without the need for haggling, making him one of the more popular merchants in the game. Barbas may be the Hound of Clavicus Vile, but as a vessel for some of the prince's powers, Barbas is equal in ability. Still, since he's so loyal to Clavicus, this means little, and Clavicus has even been known to abandon Barbas from time to time. While loyal, Barbas does seem to have free will and will sometimes even warn others of Vile's plots. Even now, Barbas asks the player to consider not returning the weapon to Clavicus, as he has foreseen the blade ruining the plane of his master. As a nice attention to detail, since Barbas is in your inventory currently, his statue at the shrine will be removed. There's more to the story, but it ties in directly with Umbra, the sword we are to retrieve, and one that has just as interesting lore as Clavicus and Barbas. Umbra is a weapon created by a witch at the behest of Clavicus as a tool for harvesting souls. Interestingly, Clavicus implies in Oblivion that Umbra houses the soul of a hero he has had dealings with, but this doesn't seem to fully be accurate. Rather, during the creation of the sword, Clavicus was tricked by the witch to offer some of his power to stabilize the weapon, and the power became a sentient being within. The sword has a few abilities. After being hidden by the witch before her execution for betraying Clavicus, this, Umbra waits for a worthy wielder before making itself known, and then begins to slowly take over the person in possession of it. In Morrowind, Umbra was a two-handed claymore, but the artifact has the ability to shapeshift into other sword types, such as a one-handed longsword as it appears in Oblivion. When someone takes possession of Umbra, they slowly change and become Umbra in name. This is the current state of a wood elf from Pell's Gate named Glenwyn, and you can learn as much from Eroke the Wild within the village. Eroke doesn't know where Umbra the person ended up, but has heard rumors of someone with a similar description staying in the nearby alien ruin Vindicil. The ruin is pretty small, so it's not long before you can find Umbra camping out within here. When you approach her, Umbra will chastise you for being so foolhardy, and in a way she's right. The character Umbra is one of the more powerful NPCs in the game. This is more apparent if you beat her early, as it's possible to reach the ruin at any point in your adventure. This has the consequence of newer players searching the ruins only to end up in a fight with a character that greatly overpowers them. One of the few rare instances of this happening in Oblivion. The spirit of Umbra within the blade hungers for souls, and it has in turn been forcing Lenwyn to kill many people. Seemingly trying to prevent any more deaths, Lenwyn has committed herself to staying within the ruins. However, now that you are here, you are in imminent danger. Luckily, Lenwyn gives you a choice. Leave now and live, or face her here and die. Barbas even chimes in, suggesting you use this as an out to return to Clavicus rather than getting murdered by Umbra. Unfortunately for Umbra, we want this weapon for ourselves, and so this leads to a battle between the two of us. With all the Daedric artifacts in our possession and at level 20 with some efficient leveling, Umbra is strong, but still a pushover. Goldbrand really smacks her around, and soon enough she's dead, allowing Lenwyn to hopefully rest in peace. Another benefit to obtaining Umbra early is that as a quest weapon, it doesn't have any weight, making it a powerful weapon in your collection without taking up precious inventory space. This changes at the end of the quest depending on whether or not you decide to return it to Clavicus or not, and yes, you have that option. Like I mentioned, the Mask of Clavicus is a pretty subpar reward. Umbra is a much more effective tool to have in our arsenal, and since it is enchanted with Soul Trap, you can damage enemies easily with Goldbrand before finishing them off with Umbra, allowing you to charge Azura Star and then use those charges to recharge your enchanted weapons, including both Umbra and Goldbrand. As long as you are killing things, you will never run out of enchantments. It's one of the best things in the game for this reason. Unfortunately for us, the final Daedric Shrine requires all other Daedric quests to be completed, meaning that we do have to make the choice with Clavicus. If we choose to defy him as Barbas wishes, we keep the sword, but it loses its quest status and therefore has weight within our inventory. A disadvantage for sure, but one of little impact once your strength is high enough. There's no punishment for it either. Clavicus suggests they'll get you back for double crossing them, but nothing seems to come of it. Barbas thanks you before returning to his master's side. If you're wondering if this means the sword will eventually possess the hero of Kabaj, the answer seems to be no, because canonically the sword seems to have been returned to Clavicus. This is due to there being a two-part book series that takes place 4 decades after the Oblivion Crisis. The first book, The Infernal City, focuses on the floating city of Umbriel. After being returned to Clavicus and brought back to his plane of Oblivion, Umbra broke out of the sword and stole the Daedric Prince's power. I won't go into all of the details, but in order to escape the realm, Umbra and another known as Vuhan merged together and created the floating city of Umbriel, while also identifying as Umbriel themselves. I haven't personally read the book, so I can't say anything about their quality, but the lore surrounding Umbra is deeper and more interesting than I thought until I started researching it more for this video. There's one final Daedric Shrine for us to discuss, and it's another that offers one of the best artifacts in the game. Unfortunately, while it is unlocked at level 20, Hermaeus Mora's quest cannot be started until you've completed all the other shrines in Cyrodiil. This means that if you are waiting to finish Clavicus so you can make use of Umbra's lack of weight, you won't be able to continue. Luckily for us, that isn't an issue. We completed the last quest and got the sword. The weight isn't a large factor whatsoever, especially with our strength being as high as it is. To make things better, we can permanently boost our strength even higher to 110, which should not normally be possible, by using the artifact we are going to obtain from Hermaeus Mora. Remember the spiel I gave you about black soul gems and how they can be used to trap sentient souls within them, only for the people to be trapped forever in the soul cairn? Well, Hermaeus here has a special black soul gem that can hold the soul of one of each of the major races in the game. Their task for you then is to collect souls from one of each of these races, 10 in total. That might sound like quite the task, and I remember audibly groaning when being asked to do this during my initial playthroughs. In reality, reality though, this is a very simplistic quest to complete, and the reason for that is because each of the shrines has an assortment of different races, with most of these shrines being in the middle of nowhere without any witnesses. Therefore, we can travel to each shrine, pick off the races we need by casting a custom spell given to us by the prince, and move on. That's what I did for every race in the game except for Altmer. For the High Elves, I opted to head back to Skingrad and pay a visit to my least favorite alchemist, Sindarian. That's what he gets for making me collect 100 Nirnroot for a potion I'm never going to actively utilize and make me pay for it. Now, to be clear, I went through this with the mindset of being efficient and somewhat vengeant if you count Sindarian. And all of those people I killed count as murders, as they were all innocent people. I even ended up being witness during one kill and had to pay a 1,000 gold bounty to avoid going to jail and losing my skills. Not a bad deal considering how much money we are making now. We essentially have a pass to kill people as long as we have the funds to do so, just like real life. Once we return to the shrine with all of the souls, we'll be congratulated by Hermaeus and they will bestow upon us the Ogma Infinium, which we can't use yet. But don't worry, we're just about to. The issue is that the use of the book's mechanic is locked off until we complete the Blood of the Daedric quest. Luckily for us, we now completed and retrieved all of the Daedric artifacts in the game, and we can finally return to Cloud Ruler Temple to offer them to Martin. When we return to the temple, Martin will mention that he has continued his research and learned that for the portal to Paradise to be constructed, we need the counterpart to the blood of a Daedric prince, the blood of a divine. Unfortunately, divines do not manifest themselves in the world for worshippers the same way that Daedric princes do. Luckily, Martin has a solution for this. Tiber Septim ascended from a mortal to a divine. This would become a contentious topic during the events of Skyrim, but Oblivion solidifies the authenticity of the subject by tasking us with retrieving the armor of Tiber Septim, which is locked away beneath the ruins of an old holy place known as Sancre Tor. Before that, however, we need to offer Martin one of the Daedric artifacts we retrieved. As I mentioned earlier, my favorite artifact to offer is the Sanguine Rose, only because Martin will mention that he once owned the artifact a long time ago, and commends us for being willing to part with it. I think there's something to be said about this here. Mechanically, the artifact isn't that great from a gameplay or efficiency sense, but within the narrative and lore of the Elder Scrolls, you could assume that these artifacts have other effects and abilities that aren't known to you. For example, Umbra doesn't take over our minds or reflect damage, although it's known to within the lore. Sanguine Rose is most likely the same, but because we have to look at this within the scope of the game, what is important to Martin is much less so to us, and it makes turning over the artifacts an easy choice. Blood of the Daedra is now concluded, and we will need to speak to Joffrey to continue with the main storyline. Before that, we now have access to the Ogma Infinium. I don't fully activate the effect at this point because I'm waiting for my character to grow a bit more. That's because the Ogma Infinium has 3 options when you open it: the paths of Steel, Shadow, and Spirit. Each path has 2 attributes it will raise by 10, as well as 3 skills that will be raised by 10 as well. This might not sound that good if the attributes getting raised are already 100, but I'm happy to say that this will actually boost them past their maximum value. Unlike skills, which don't benefit much from being pushed past the maximum, attributes are more effective. Raising strength to 110 would continue to raise your carrying capacity and fatigue. Raising speed would continue to make your character faster. You may then realize why the book wouldn't let us read it until the quest was concluded, because the bonuses applied to your character are not passive buffs like the Grey Prince's training. They are increased as if you have earned the skills or leveled the attributes yourself. That means if any of the 3 skills that you raise are major skills, they will level you up, so make sure that you know what path you want and make sure you raise the necessary minor skills before activating, so you don't waste attribute bonuses. If we could use the book right away, it would be the de facto artifact to remove, as it would have lost all functionality. Since the artifact you choose is supposed to be a choice, making the Ogma Infinium worthless would have been a cop-out. I'm personally waiting for my speed attribute to hit 100, then I plan on using the Path of Steel to strength and speed to 110, as I believe they will be the most beneficial to me at this point in the game, especially since I need some options when I decide to start leveling magic. Yeah, since the melee build section of the attributes is almost maxed out, it's soon going to be time to focus on using some magic to become more effective at that skill set. Looking back, I still believe the Daedric quests to be some of the best and worst the game had to offer. Many of them allowed the creators to play around around with the insanity and depravity of the Daedric princes. While not all of these were utilized well, plenty of them managed to stand out to me even today. Sheogorath raining fiery dogs from the skies, Nocturnal giving us the skeleton key, here seen showing us a unicorn that we can ride, and more. They offer a lot of unique experiences from what we can consider a faction questline almost, and unfortunately some of the actual factions can't live up to that. It's just unfortunate that some of these quests were either terrible or had so little for the player to do that they ended up being a blemish on an otherwise enjoyable experience. So Joffrey has information for us about the armor of Tiber Septim and gives us the key to Sancre Tor, but he mentions that a gate has opened up near Bruma and tasks you with helping the Bruma guards learn how to close the gate so that they will be self-sufficient. This then splits the main storyline into two parts, the Bruma Gate questline and the Divine Blood questline. Bruma Gate is a required quest to complete, but it leads into an optional quest called Allies for Bruma, which we will be completing. It entails us traveling to each of the other major cities and requesting aid in the form of more guards. It will require us to remove Oblivion gates near each of the cities before they feel comfortable sending their men away. Luckily, we have already cleared some of these gates on our travels, speeding up the process. But before we can continue with the storyline, we have a bit of a problem. We've collected all of these Daedric artifacts, full of dangerous power, and I've been storing them in a shack on the Imperial waterfront. Not the safest spot to keep our goods, really. Well, luckily for us, we were bombarded with DLC notifications as we were making our way out of the Imperial servers back at the start of the game. And I think it's high time we explored the microtransaction DLC additions that appeared in the form of player housing, starting with Frostcrag Spire. The Wizard's Tower is the first player home microtransaction DLC to be released for the game and was the third release in terms of DLC overall. It unlocks a tower near Cloud Ruler
На перерывчик на 10 минуточек. Я вернусь, окей? Не теряйте. It's break time! Я вернулась! Ей!
Things from the leader of the cult,
Так.
Mankar Cameron. After handing all of our gear
Включу,
to Arrow,
наверное,
we
уже
can continue
видос.
on following him to the ritual.
Бля. Да-да-да-да-да-да-да. Так, 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 так. Так, погодите-ка, у меня есть, кажется, идея. Ну-ка. Так. Ага. Мультирейзер. Пойми. Вот. Нормас, нормас. Что бы теперь такое сделать? Не знаю, короче. А. Так. Ля. Попробуй такое сделать на кончике. No, I don't know. Не, чуть помягче. Так. I am confusion. Да блин, так. Блин, что я решил делать теперь? Вот the fuck, что мне еще на фон такое сделать, чтобы это было офигеватое. Так, wait, I have an idea. Так. Вау, офигеть. Вот это idea. Oh, 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 wow. Так, если это, допустим... Боже, что я делаю? Что я творю? What the fuck? Я не знаю. Так. Так, не знаю. А, куда едешь? Куда едешь? Да блин, так. Я не знаю. What the fuck is this? Откуда столько пробелов-то? О май гад. Ба-ба-ра-ба-ба-ба-бам. Ля-ля-ля-ля. Ё.
This is Garnet, back together. And I'm never going down at the hands of the likes of you because I'm so much better. And every part of me is saying, go get her. The two of us ain't gonna follow your rules. Come at me without any of your fancy tools. Let's go, just me and you.
О! Спасибо за ману! Спасибо! Спасибо! Окей. Так, ну-ка, просто, знаешь, здесь. А. Спасибо за ману! Спасибо! Так, нет, потемнее. Воу, так. Ладно, пускай будет вот так вот как раз. Так даже лучше. Нет, что-нибудь еще надо такое вставить. То, чтобы это не было, не знаю, слишком. Ну, допустим. Ромик, да, окей, ну, maybe. Они сюда не вставляют, сюда, сука. Так. Давайте вот так попробуем. Жесть. О! Да ё. Так. Так, заблюрим пока что их. Подногодную. Понеслось. Так, нет, не тот мне блюр нужен. Так. По- Mysterious wound. Shut up. Чтобы рука у нее все-таки была более видная. Oh my god. Так. Yo. Так. Let's see. Так. Что бы мне выбрать? Без понятия нахуй. Так, 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 так. О, бой, ладно. Сюда бедная, эту тоже сделали. Так, теперь шумочек добавим сюда. Все будет в шоколаде. Мне кажется, она не очень подойдет. Очень этот шум. Нет. Так. Oh boy, oh gee, oh boy. A mysterious room will be generated. Shut up. Just shut up. Так, oh my god. Так. Стоп, стоп. Ага. Щищ. А, так, у меня уже есть настоящая бутермарка. Так. Так. Ага, вот так вот. Блин, я влюбилась в градиент резинку. Как я вообще без нее обходилась? Да никак, блин. Так. Сетки вообще не видно. Так, если я попробую все-таки чуть-чуть это оживить. Ой, блин. Мне немножко сделать видимым. Нет, что-то не очень. Не, наверное, другой шум сделаю. Как что-то как-то не подходит. интересные. Вот так прям интересный эффект становится, только вампирша вообще светится на этой части. Вообще мне нравится прям эффект, да. Так, ну-ка, как он на экране телефона смотрится? Вроде бы даже ничего. Ну, окей. Так, если я все-таки продублирую этот слой, сделаю его вообще. Ой, так. Ладно, в принципе, можно сказать, что готово. Так, хочу ли я, не знаю, начать следующую какую-нибудь простую атаку? Может, я уже, скорее всего, буду скоро заканчивать стрим. Может быть, я смогу ее дорисовать завтра. Такой вот, не знаю, план. Скорее всего, не рабочий. Скорее всего, не рабочий. Ладно. Не знаю, не знаю. Мне хотелось все-таки побольше так делать. Ладно. Думаю, не буду уже начинать, потому что, честно говоря, я уже немножко подустала. О май гад. О! Спасибо за ману! Спасибо! Спасибо. Так, я уже заканчиваю. Так. Ладно, посмотрим. Так. Какие у меня там вообще в закладках еще персонажи есть? Может, у меня бы хватило сил на кого-нибудь прям простенького. Знаете что? Опускай. Попробую наскетчить вот этого прям. Марш-бросок. Марш-бросок. Я об этом пожалею, потому что я, наверное, не успею его уже дорисовать. Ну ладно, ладно, посмотрим. Так. Greed. Настройки greed. His greed sickens me. Yes. Так. Окей, ладно, попробуем хотя бы наскетчить по бырику. May travel disagree. Окей, так. Попробуем так. Так, чуточку уменьшим его. Так, ага, у него вообще круглая башка, замечательно. This is what I need. Максимально что-то простое. Так. Да ёбаный карась. Так, так, сразу, пожалуй, наскетчиваю одежку. Mysterious room will be generated in 1 minute. Да блин, почему эти руны и арены появляются так не вовремя? Да, мне уже заканчивать пора. Ладно, наверное, я просто забыла, как они работают. Your affection, no, 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 no. Так. Так, рисуем сначала такие кружочки. О, нужна вода. О. Так, о май гад. Так, да. А. Нем. Так. Так, скорее всего, мне надо укоротить ему торс, а то что-то опять с этим постоянно, блин. Господи, я забыла слово. Пиздец. Так. О! Спасибо за ману! Спасибо! Спасибо! А! Спасибо за ману, спасибо. Спасибо. Что-то странное происходит. Я попала в какой-то сезон. Невероятно, наконец-то. Не может быть. And I am so busy. Так. Так. О, да что ж такое? Что за день сегодня такой? Спасибо за ману, спасибо. Йоу, два ёперный театр. Так. Так, нет, это большие какие-то треугольники. Раз. Два. Нормас, нормас. Нет, наверное, я не буду уголки делать. На модели ее нет. Let's see. Так, ну тут, судя по рефу, прям такие очень Vaporwave, Cleancore вайбы. Так, надо что-нибудь, наверное, заранее на фончик тоже себе наметить, чтобы Я потом не думала 350 лет, что мне потом на фончик сделать. Что-то типа глич. Тут я сделаю. Что-то такое. Так. Ба-ба-ба-ба-ба-ба-ба-ба-ба-бам. Нет, что-то мне не нравится. Так, ну-ка, ну-ка, ну-ка. Нет, надо как-то наметить попроще, попроще надо. Вот как-то так. Типа того.
Very smooth, very romantic. I love you. See you next time.
Much love to you too, Sensei.
Ну, типа того, не знаю, блин. Так. Давайте-ка сохраним. Попел. Туа. Капец, у меня появилась наконец-то тягость к рисованию, но мне уже пора реально заканчивать. Так что, увы. Увы и ах. Так. Ну, что ж, что тут можно, в принципе, сказать? Кое-что я все-таки закончила. Я доделала, по сути, 2 артфайт атаки. Пусть я и начинала их вне стримов. Но хоть что-то. Так, мне надо их теперь чуть-чуть подправить по размерам и отослать. И тогда все будет чики-пуки. Ну что ж, я постримлю что-нибудь в пятницу. Может быть, Overwatch. Скорее всего, Overwatch, потому что я не знаю, что мне стримить. В общем, спасибо всем, кто смотрел этот стрим, кто общался в чате. Увидимся, возможно, в пятницу, я надеюсь. Всем пока!